Listen, you didn't. I just met you. You didn't know who I was. I came up to you.
But I knew your name. You know what I mean? Like, yeah, your
Rich.
face. I was like, oh shit, he's not Zach Morris. But I knew your name.
I came up to
Lord
you. I
Reed.
introduced myself to you. I knew who you were.
I'm more infamous on Twitter. I put my face on Twitter more. You've had the same Avi
I
since
can't
Twitter
change it.
started.
I mean, I can't change it at this
Yeah.
point.
So since Twitter started, and you've never had another one that I know of since I've been on Twitter, and that's been
I had one before this. I had two, but this is when like things blew up and it got too late. It was too late to can't make a change, man.
You can't make a change.
Well, you know how like when you're scrolling through timelines and like you follow people for so long, like you'll like stop because you'll know like it's someone like, oh shit, that was like Sigmund Bloom, like because he's had the same thing for you'll be like, oh, let me see what he said.
Right.
That's how like how mine is coming. You see it and just like pink shirt. It's like oh.
Oh God, maybe that's my issue. Maybe I need to start doing that. My interaction's been down, so I think that could actually help me out a little bit. Thanks for
when you think of like
Twitter
JJ or like someone like you, it's the same thing. Like you just because when you're scrolling, you're like, oh, it just hit. It's like all right, I've seen that AVI so many times. It's a thing I want to stop on. So, but honestly, when people change theirs up all the time, I'm like, who the hell is it? Like, what happened? Who was this that I was following?
Yeah, I feel like it's like Facebook where you should change on a regular basis so people know what you look like currently. But I guess Twitter is not the same.
See, I go back and forth. So like SFB season, I'm gonna get the Avi makers or whatever, right? So you got to get the SFB one because well, you just do. And then I get bored with that quickly, and I'm like, all right, now I'm just gonna put a picture of me. And then I go through some like self-introspective moments, and I'm like, I don't know that I want my face on Twitter, so I'm probably going to just put this picture of a banana that's rotting, and people can figure out the meaning behind it. And then I just tweet out things like boobs, and then people are like, oh no, he's fine.
Oh yeah. I mean that's normal for Shane. At least he keeps people in our group chats that are really important people sometimes. Right?
What?
I was just referencing somebody that left a group chat recently because of you saying boobs, essentially. But yeah.
Oh yeah. Sorry about that, ma'am.
Let's kick this one off. Let's get the show started.
This is Fantasy Intervention. Now here to intervene with your fantasy life, Shane Manila, Jacob Sanderson, and Chase Vernon.
Oh, what's going on, everybody? Oh, whoa, he's back. No, what's going on, everybody? Welcome on in. Yes, another episode of Fantasy Intervention coming at you. We are back on Wednesdays, folks, and I could not be more excited. Wednesdays are our flagship show. We have competitions, we have games, we have bets laid out. And last year, I was joined by Cooter Doodle and Daddy's Home. And this year, they're moving on to bigger, better things. So they're bigger and better, Shane. I'm sorry to tell you, but they're moving on to bigger, better things. So I had to downgrade. No, I'm just kidding. Of course, I had to upgrade. Go with Shane is the worst and Jacob Sanderson, who will be joining us very shortly. And to kick off this season, to kick off our second season, I had to bring out one of my favorite football analysts in the entire fantasy football industry. Somebody that I'm very sad that I missed at the FF Expo, of course, but hopefully we'll eventually get to meet up at some point. I got Rich Hribarl in. What's going on, Rich? How you doing, man?
What's going on, guys? I appreciate the kind words. I did get to meet Shane at the FF Expo.
I know. It came up. I was like, how did I miss him? I didn't even see this guy. I was so disappointed.
No, it's a good time to meet some lot of people that I haven't got a chance to meet. Put some faces to some AVIs that we talked about earlier, and it was a good experience for everybody. Everything went off without a hitch, and it was a big turnout. And I didn't get COVID afterwards, so it was cool. So
that's even better.
It all worked out. And listen, we made it. It's week 1. There are actual games to talk about. I'm so thrilled that they're actual games. We don't have to get any more season-long hot takes. We can actually just focus on actual things that are going to happen and content that dies in 7 days from now.
You know what? Yeah, it dies literally. Just go ahead and bury him right there. I was kind of like a little bit disappointed, to be honest, in the hot takes this season. I felt like there were a lot less hot takes, or at least we reacted to a lot less hot takes than previous seasons, because I felt like we were getting so mad, so mad at all these different hot takes that were coming out last season.
Because people, it's like when you get beat by your parents, right? You eventually grow immune to it. Like you just get used to it. It's like, oh yeah. Tua Tagovailoa is going to be the QB1. Okay. Like, you know what I mean? Like anyone, they'll just give you, they can cite anything to find a path to what they're saying to be true. Then it's just like, all right. But, and also, you know what hot takes are for? No one takes them serious unless they hit. Because if they hit, then you're like, oh, I called it. But if they don't hit, you're like, dude, that was my
gotta have them
prediction.
Receipts.
Yeah, that was a bold prediction. I never meant that. There's no way I meant that. And you're like, but you wrote a 7-page article on why it was going to happen. Like, no. You misunderstood. That was all in jest.
Everyone's out here for them receipts. Gotta have those engagements.
You have to. I mean, it's just part of the industry, right? No, but I'm excited to dive into this episode because this is where our hot takes from week to week, maybe not off-season hot takes, but this is where our hot takes from week to week actually take off, right? This is where we actually get to recognize the takes that we have right and the takes that we have wrong, because I keep score. I actually keep track of what we say on the show. And Rich, he's all in for it. He's ready to go. But before we get started, Rich, I want you to tell everybody where you're at, and then I need to go through a real quick sponsorship read because we have a brand new sponsor I'm very excited about for fantasy football discussion. Rich, where can we find you, man? What you got going on? Why should people be listening to you if they have not already?
At Twitter, at Lord Reeves, as you see on the screen there. I also am at Sharp Football Analysis. All my content is there. I do an article. It's the weekly worksheet where I break down kind of in depth every game of the week that's already up. It comes out on Tuesdays every week. So that's already up, posted. I'll have some DFS content, later in the week, rankings, all that other stuff that comes with all the token website that is, but really the worksheet is what I'm known for. So, check out that content. I'll be floating around podcasts. I'll be on Roto Grinders Pick 6 tonight and every Wednesday. And I'm in them streets.
Dude, we're going to have you on as often as we can this season. I know your season is packed throughout the week, but I'm still going to...
Yeah, week one's always the best because the 1 week I get to work ahead, and then the rest is a disaster.
It's a nightmare. Like, I had anxiety tonight, like getting the show up and running, and now, oh my God, it's going to be brutal.
This is the calmest any of us will be on a Wednesday for the next 3 months.
Oh, easy.
Next year, this time next week, I'm starting lineups. I'm like, oh shit, I gotta make trades because there's no way that I'm gonna win, and yeah, it's gonna be fun after tonight, baby.
Everyone's like, yay, 1 more week of football this year. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah. Okay.
All right.
Okay. All right. So I do have 2 questions up on the board already that I'm going to answer. But first, I want to sit there and give a shout out to Thrive Fantasy. If you guys have not checked out Thrive Fantasy, y'all need to check out Thrive Fantasy. It's amazing. If you guys actually go in there and enter in promo code Marcus, whatever y'all end up putting in, they'll actually match on the deposit. But what you do is you pick 10 different lineups, right? And you actually get to pick the over-unders for these lineups. And each one is based off a certain number of points based on what your competition bet on. So if you pick a lineup that you think is really going to hit, you can end up winning a free contest, by the way, for Fantasy Football Discussion. If you're in that group, you can go check the announcement up there, along with a free trophy from Trophy Smack, or a free actual belt from Trophy Smack from Thrive. So go check it out over there on Fantasy Football Discussion on Facebook. It's a Facebook group. If you guys are not part of that, go join it. Go join this free contest. You don't have to pay for it. You can win some money, and you can win a free trophy belt along with it. But let's go ahead and jump on the show. Oh, once again, the promo code is Marcus, because we all got to beat Marcus over there at Fantasy Football Discussion. You got to beat him. All right, so we got fab percentages, right? And certain leagues are different. Like I know in the Weenus, right, the charity league for Weenus, the fab is up there at 269. Meanwhile, most fabs are sitting around 100, 150, 200. So they want to know what the fab percentage should be put on Justin Jackson after the injury announcement to Austin Eckler.
I'm surprised he's actually available. So see, this is where I'm going to have to get used to being redraft, because Dynasty, I'm like, no, he's not available. What do you mean the fab? How long is Eckler going to be out? He a hamstring injury.
I think he could play this week. Like, they haven't made an announcement yet.
They just said he didn't practice, right?
Yeah. I mean, and it's Justin Jackson. I've kind of gotten and seen him in the past, and I've got to see him when he's gotten an opportunity. I'm not going to go above 10% for Justin Jackson.
I think the question is how much do you need to chase this win in week 1?
That's essentially it. Like,
did you 0 RB? Did you punt RB2? Maybe, but the thing about Justin Jackson is he is kind of similar to just a lesser version of Austin Eckler, right? He's no guarantee to get goal line carries if they get down there. He's not even as good as a pass catcher as Austin Eckler, so it's really depends on how much you're really chasing this week 1 win. I am in the same boat. I probably wouldn't extend myself. It doesn't sound like it's serious, but also it's a hamstring. It could be something that goes on for a couple weeks or reoccurs. But my problem with Eckler or Justin Jackson is it's like kind of the same thing at Eckler's, and like we're kind of just hoping for he gets goal line carries and this role extends itself. But we don't really know what happened with Justin Jackson. Could be a complete more of a committee where he's ahead, like with 60% of the backfield touches, but we see Joshua Kelly or Larry Roundtree inside the 5. I mean, it's not anyone I'm like super excited about. I would really, really need to fill a running back spot this week to really go aggressive on him.
What a week to drop Joshua Kelly in the Scott Fish Bowl, let me tell you. All right, or what a day, I should say, to drop Joshua Kelly in the Scott Fish Bowl. All right, so we got one more question. What are your thoughts on Baker Mayfield this season? I'm going to start out with something very quick and simple. He's going to be a very safe option from week to week, but there's also very, very limited upside. If you're playing 2 quarterback leagues, sure, he can be your quarterback 2 or the 3rd option on your team. If not, I'll stream him from week to week, if they're playing a good run defense. Do you guys have any different take on this? Is this something where you're investing in Baker Mayfield? Do you think I'm wrong on this?
I mean, is it super flex, and do you really like QB2s? Because that's what he is. That's what he's a very average player that Cleveland doesn't throw the ball a lot. That's not going to change. I mean, they just paid Nick Chubb and Kareem Hunt, right? Or they paid one of them. For both of them? I don't remember. They signed Kareem Hunt last year, or they just signed Chubb. They're going to use them, is basically the point. And they found that that's the recipe for success. I don't like low upside guys, so there won't be many weeks where I'm actually starting Baker Mayfield. I'd rather take my chance with, I don't honestly, like say Kellen Mond got a start and I had to choose between Kellen Mond and Baker Mayfield. I'm probably on Kellen Mond just because of the rushing upside. But that's more of a philosophical approach.
Rich, do you have anything different to add to that?
No, I think you hit it on it. He's basically a streaming matchup play. He doesn't give you enough rushing equity and enough passing volume to make him like a regular guy to lean on as your QB1 in 1 quarterback formats. So you're going to pick your spots. I mean, they do play Houston in week 2.
If they even need to, if they even need to pass, Baker might throw 1 pass attempt in that game.
I mean, you look at last year when he started to regularly deliver kind of QB1 weeks on the back stretch, and it was basically all opponent driven outside of the Ravens, like Monday night, just like that crazy game where Lamar had to go in the locker. That game was just wild. But all the rest was basically, it was all matchup production. So he's going to be a same thing. A deep pocket of guys like, Kirk Cousins and Matt Ryan. Those are all kind of similar guys, right? Like that's where we are.
And we're going to get to a lot of these other questions that we have lined up in the chat, but I do want to get this actual show started out. Let's get it lined up. And I want to talk about some of the players that may have been dropped today because the waiver wire is processed for some of you that actually have waiver wire pickups, like the Scott Fish Bowl, for example. And I was sitting there, I was going through a lot of the drops that happened today. And a lot of it's overreacting. And I'm going to start with the Kadarius Toney one, which actually got good news today. I mean, they said that, hey, this whole pass catching corpse they have over there for the Giants is injured or they're struggling, and Kadarius Toney could actually get work in week 1. Do you think it's an overreaction to drop Kadarius Toney? And if he hits your waiver wires, do you all think that he should pick them up, or do you think you should just let him lie?
I'm not picking him up in redraft. I don't know why you would have drafted him in the first place in redraft, to be quite honest with you. If you drafted him
first round pick,
I get that, but if you were drafting him and redrafting, you're already cutting him. I got questions about your process anyway, because he was raw coming out of college. We knew that. Just because he got drafted in the first round, there was nothing to indicate that he was going to be a starter this year. I mean, maybe towards the end of the season, but no. I'll try to be short for once. No, I would not pick up Kadarius Toney.
Rich, are you on a different end of the spectrum for this, or are you on the same side?
I mean, I can see the bull case, but you need deep rosters because he's not a guy you're going to start at the beginning of the season because there's now no comfort level. So I mean, you're going to be a guy he's going to eat a roster spot for a little bit, and you're going to need to probably see him ramp up to become reliable. And who's going to become reliable in this Giants passing game? Will we get anybody that's reliable in this passing game? So I mean, it's kind of a question. Not even to really dunk on the situation. It's just we've got a bad offensive line, bad quarterback play. We don't really know how the targets are going to be dispersed with them adding Kenny Galladay. They'll get Evan Ingram back, I assume, at some point. So it's really hard. How many guys are you expecting Daniel Jones to support that we're going to count on week to week? I feel like he's a guy that's just going to occupy a bench spot because you're going to talk yourself, like you said, first-round pick. There is talent there, so you just never cut him, right? And then you end up eating that roster spot basically the whole season, hopefully hoping that you hit that upside.
I'm kind of on the opposite end of the spectrum with this, like to an extent. I'm not saying that you should hold on to Kadarius Toney and just stash him just because, right? Like that doesn't make any sense to me. I want to actually sit there and look at Kadarius Toney as a possible breakout candidate throughout the first few weeks. He has an easy schedule overall. Maybe he could put something up. I'm going to see what they offer him in week one. And if he doesn't produce in week one, I'm dropping him. But if it's an 18-team roster plus, I'll keep him as... Yeah. If it's 15 teams, 16, no, I won't keep him. But if it's 18, I'll hold on to him just to see what happens with week one. If they don't give him the rock on week one, I'll go ahead and drop him. I'd rather have guys like Rondell Moore who are rookies, other players that I wouldn't mind stashing a little bit longer to give him a little bit more of a time to develop. But I at least want to see what he has for week one. And if, I don't see Judge being that coach that's like, hey, you didn't participate all offseason. You didn't play in the preseason. Just come play for us. I don't see him being that player, that coach, I'm sorry, but if there was one player that could do it, it would be a first-round pick in a wide receiver. All right, so my second guy is going to be this running back, right? This running back was running back one for their team in the previous year. He had multiple weeks towards the end of the season, I believe it was the last 3 weeks, where he outperformed things. And when you sit there and you look at their schedule, I don't see them winning any games anytime soon. It is a bad offense. But it's still not an offense that's going to have to pass. He is a running back. Ding in when you know the answer. I can keep going if y'all want me to.
Yeah, because your clues have sucked so far. Help me out here.
He's a pass-catching running back in a bad offense. How many of those are there?
James Robinson?
No. I don't think the Jaguars' offense is going to be bad, but I just gave away the answer by saying the Texans with David Johnson.
David Johnson?
Yeah, he has the Jaguars, the Browns, the Panthers. It doesn't get any prettier after that with the Bills, the Patriots. Like, could David Johnson, a guy that's being dropped at a rapid rate right now, actually be better as a third down back than what he was as a bell cow?
No.
He actually wasn't bad last year.
He wasn't. He wasn't. He had 3 or 4 great games that kind of tipped the scales a little bit, but I don't think he was bad.
Well, one thing that's happened to David Johnson over the course of his career is it was a problem he had coming out as a prospect, him being a wide receiver convert, in college, and he was recruited as a wide receiver, then transferred over to running back, is that he's not really a great runner. He doesn't have great vision. He's a guy that doesn't, get a lot of easy runs, like create yards for himself, and it's kind of progressively limited him over the course of his career. But what he still was last year and what he has been throughout the course of his career is really good in the receiving game. He's been excellent. He was even last year. It was a good receiver. With Deshaun Watson is not a guy that's typically checked down. They didn't throw a lot of passes to the running back. There could potentially be more. I'm looking at, does he get traded? Does he get on a different roster at some point this season? That could be a thing with the Texans in general. Brandon Cooks, any of those running backs could find themselves on different rosters. We've already seen Bradley Roby get traded from that roster. In best balls, I know I was taking a lot of shots on Brandon Cooks, just hoping for like a mid-season trade, right? Like, does he end up in a better situation? Because he's going around wide receiver 40, and, anytime that he's played with a good quarterback, he's been good. There could be a situation where you end up running into David Johnson where there's an injury that opens up on a roster and someone's desperate, right? We don't have a lot of bodies. We're going to make this move. We'll ship a future 6 for David Johnson. He runs into some opportunity. I think presently on the Houston roster, he's definitely probably more of just a PPR flex guy if he even has that role, which we aren't even sure he does have it based on the preseason usage. It's a little more guesswork right now. I will say if you watch the Texans at all in the preseason, they have signaled, especially going to Tyrod Taylor, they are going to try to be as boring and vanilla as possible. They are going to run as much as they can, not really try to put themselves in a lot of passing situations. I don't know how long that's going to work with that defense, but that's what they are signaling right now that they want to do. But I mean, he's more of just like a deep stash. You need to probably get on another roster to really run into any type of upside. Otherwise, he just ends up being like one of these other thrift store satellite backs. That's just the floor play.
So they actually lose money if they lose money if they trade him.
But they don't care about that at this point, and it's the Texans. But the problem with they have Tyrod Taylor back there now, right? Tyrod Taylor's not going to target the running back any more than Deshaun did. And I was just looking up Tyrod's career stats real quick. He had LaShawn McCoy when Shady was at his peak, for a 3-year run, and the most he ever targeted him was 77 times. I can't imagine that David Johnson can produce on, even if he hit that 77 targets for the year, which, like Rich was saying, he's sharing that backfield with Mark Ingram and Philip Lindsay and who knows who else. And he might get traded, but I don't know that would even make it that much better for him. So he's just a guy I'm not really interested in. Now, again, if he's a free agent, he's on the waiver wire, maybe I'll pick him up.
Yeah, I could see that happening. I think that he's just an interesting stash just because of how bad that schedule is and like how much they will have to pass.
Yeah, but also that team's going to be very bad in every aspect of the game, I think. Like running, passing. There's not going to be one area of the game where it's like, there's some offenses where you can look at and go, all right, well, at least I'll have to pass a lot, so they'll dump off to the quarterback or the running back. I don't even know if they'll be good at that. Like, I don't think they'll be good at anything. My only hope, what Chris was saying, was Brandon Cooks. Like, I keep hoping Brandon Cooks will still be a thing because he seems to be, wherever he is, he seems to be a thing. But I have not a lot of hope in that offense.
All right, so let's go to Jared Cook, a different Cook in this perspective, because Jared Cook, this upcoming week up against Washington, I think is being undervalued. I mean, Washington has an amazing schedule, right? Amazing defense, I'm sorry. And when you sit there and you look at the matchups that they have, right? Benjamin St. Judice, they have Kendall Fuller, they have, William Jackson, of course, on the outside. I mean, they match up perfectly with the Chargers. Meanwhile, they're not going to be able to run the ball. And on the other side of things, it's probably going to be the same thing. It's going to be a very low-scoring game. But if there's one player that can win up the seam, it's probably going to be Jared Cook up against Cam Curl or Landon Collins. So is Jared Cook a possible tight end stream for this upcoming week? And should he be, put into your flex based off of the matchups?
By flex?
Or at least, maybe a guy that should be started over top of your starting tight end if you try to stream tight ends.
Sure. I mean, it's tight end, so sure. Because unless you have one of the top, I'll go 7 deep right now. We're about 8 deep with tight end, maybe 9. Unless you got one of the top 9 tight ends, I think it's basically you're just playing matchups from here on out, and or with those players. And if you're telling me it's a good matchup, I'll look into that and investigate. And if it's true, then maybe I will start Jared Cook.
Yeah, it's tough. I could see him possibly being a streamer conversation. I'm a little concerned, one, about just how many, points the Chargers are going to be able to score in this game overall. They don't have like a really tremendous team total, right around 23 points. And then we have to worry about too, does Donald Parham get any work in this game at all, especially with, what we've seen this offseason a little bit. I mean, Cook is 34 years old. He's basically kind of a vertical guy. He follows Joe Lombardi to the Chargers. So there is, a little bit of familiarity of what they know they've got out of him. But I think if I'm probably fishing at tight end, which, if you're setting yourself up, I mean, I probably would take a shot on Austin Hooper or even Zach Ertz before I got to Jared Cook.
Zach Ertz is interesting, right? Because the Falcons actually struggled against tight end. Meanwhile, his red zone percentage last year was incredible when it came to target share. So I'm very interested in Zach Ertz. But I just feel like Jared Cook is like the only where to go up against this Washington football team defense. So it makes it a little bit more interesting for me.
Yeah, Washington's, we know their defense is inherently good, but if you look at the slate of quarterbacks they faced last year, they definitely got a big time bonus from who they played. Like we inherently do believe their offense is good, but they faced nobody really good at all, like in terms of quarterback play last year.
No, you're definitely not wrong about that. I mean, it's something that where Washington got a significant advantage, not only just on defense, but also on the offensive line. I mean, everybody's talking about, how great this offensive line was, but they were really the toughest team they had was Pittsburgh. who just lost Bud Dupree at the time. So, I mean, we saw a stretch for both sides of the ball when it came to Pittsburgh. But let's go ahead. Let's stop talking about, some of these boring plays, these boring guys where you can actually find them. Let's go ahead and move on to some of these questions. And we're going to have to move on to some of these kind of fast because we're falling a little bit behind. But first question is from Robert Astores. Need your guys' advice. Should I flex Marvin Jones against the Roby-less Texans or Jarvis Landry up against the Chiefs? We'll start with you, Rich, if you would like to.
I have no problem with this. I mean, the question is with the Jaguars is when all three guys are playing, what kind of target shares do we see? But, I mean, going up against the Houston Texans, a team that was 25th in yards per target to wide receivers last year. They were 21st in deep completion rate allowed to wide receivers as well. So, I mean, there is a little bit of upside there. I'd like to see him and Shark because they have kind of an overlap where they win, right? Kind of how they end up cannibalizing each other, and we just see kind of Visca be like the Deebo Samuel of this offense, like that's the most bankable guy. The Chiefs have been interesting because they've been like really tough on wide receivers for multiple years now running. And when you look at Landry splits last year, with and without Odell Beckham's going to be back. He had 26% of team targets when Odell Beckham played, only 18% of the targets. I mean, he had 26% when Odell Beckham was out. 18% when Odell Beckham played. So there is significant splits there. Landry's not a guy we're probably going to get a touchdown out of, right? Like we're going to be pretty fortunate if we get a touchdown. Marv, that's kind of his thing. That's kind of his game, right? Like you're going to get he's going to be the wide receiver 45 or he's going to be the wide receiver 12. So I don't really have a problem with it going for the upside. I think the matchup is there. And, like I said, a couple things are in Marv's favor.
By the way, Jacob, you look so much more beautiful while you're using this camera versus the other one. Just want to let you know.
Dude, this isn't a camera. I had to come with my phone. For people that are watching, I'm so sorry. I was already going to be late. Then I come back to my apartment. I set up my computer. As soon as I come into the show, my Wi-Fi immediately conks. I try to get back in, still can't get into my computer. So now I'm just fully on my iPhone, drenched in sweat. So what's up, everybody?
Oh, so sexy right there.
Appreciate the dedication.
Yeah. Would you start Marvin Jones over Jarvis Landry this week, Jacob? Rich
Absolutely
just gave
not.
A bunch of reasons.
Absolutely not. No. I would start Jarvis Landry because Jarvis Landry is good, very good, actually, at football. And the Browns are a really effective passing team. The problem is they're not a willing passing team, but they're going to be this week because Kansas City is going to force them to be. That's the highest over-under game on the slate. And you're going to have Odell Beckham, who's going to be drawing the teeth of that Kansas City defense. And especially if you have a Cleveland team that's potentially playing from behind or even a neutral script, they're going to be relying on Jarvis Landry to move the chains. Marvin Jones, they have a lot of guys. They have Chenault there. Chark's back to full health. They have Marvin. I mean, they could also win that game in the first quarter. I mean, Houston, you guys were talking about them as I came in. They're absolutely dreadful. So I would definitely rather play Jarvis this week.
I'm actually on the side of Rich right now. I'm somebody that believes that this is actually going to be a way lower scoring game, contrary to Vegas's popular belief. And I know that normally does not end well. However, I think they're going to run the ball a lot. And I think that the brand new Browns defense is actually set up to succeed because everywhere they sucked at last year, they fixed. They got the guys who were good up against the tight ends, right? They got the guys who were good up against the deep balls. And they could end up forcing Patrick Mahomes, who, by the way, is in his first game back since sucking ass in the Super Bowl, to actually run the ball a little more often, which the Browns are good there too. So, I mean, with less receivers, with more tight ends, I think that they go with a shorter passing routine schedule than what we've seen. And I think that they actually don't score nearly as often as what they normally do, putting Jarvis Landry in a position to get third downs and whatnot. But, I mean, we're talking about Juju Smith-Schuster numbers this upcoming week for Jarvis Landry. Meanwhile, all it takes is Marvin Jones to get two big plays, and all of a sudden he's more relevant than Jarvis Landry ever dreamed of being, this upcoming season. So I'm on Marvin Jones' side 100% on this one, and I think that, he could absolutely outproduce Jarvis Landry. Jarvis Landry's ceiling's maybe, 6 catches for 70 yards and maybe a touchdown, although the tight ends get 37% of the touchdowns that are passing touchdowns for the Browns.
Wow, I never thought, while you're making a point that I ultimately agree with, that I would disagree with you with a lot of what you said. But
what?
Here's what I don't get though. Like Jarvis has a higher ADP than Marvin, and maybe you disagree with that. But Jarvis had a higher ADP than Marvin the entirety of the offseason. I certainly think that was correct. If you're not starting Jarvis in a game with a 56.5 over/under, when the hell are you starting him? Like, you should have even drafted him.
I'm out. I'm out on Jarvis.
I mean, in a vacuum, when you say that, it sounds great. But when your vacuum expands a little bit, I don't know what you would call that. When your vacuum gets a little bigger, when there's a second vacuum added, and Marvin Jones is in that other vacuum, I like that vacuum better in this matchup. I mean, let's pretend I know their name. The Chiefs. There you go. The Chiefs, like Rich said, they're a good pass defense. They're a very good pass defense. The Jacksonville game is going to be a lot of passing yards, a ton of passing yards. And other than target share, like Rich said, I don't see any concerns. And Marvin Jones doesn't need a lot of target share. Marvin Jones is the type of guy that can go off on, 5 targets. So I also like Marvin Jones. But again, I like upside. So that's always the way I'm going to lean.
But even at ADP where Marv and Landry are, like, you could basically throw out numbers at that point. Like, all those guys are in the same bucket, right? Like, it's not like we're talking like the wide receiver 12 versus the wide receiver 30 in like ADP. Like, big picture, Landry had a higher ADP because he's just been more consistent over the course of his career and, had more targets. He actually had career lows last year in receptions and in target share without Odell Beckham. When Odell Beckham played. So, I mean, it's tough because I do weekly rankings every week too, and you have a guy at wide receiver 34 and you have a guy at wide receiver 50. What's the real gap, right? People see that 16 ranking gap.
It's more about potential at that point, what you need for your team.
It's never that close, really.
I think you guys just like Marvin Jones more than I do. I just don't think he's very good.
I think it's fair.
But have you actually? Because Marvin Jones actually has outproduced his ADP just about every season.
No, he doesn't. He outproduces his ADP because he has 2 games every year when everyone else is hurt, and he catches like 4 touchdowns, and then it lifts up all the other pieces of dung in your stocking
last year.
Yes,
but
he
there's
had
nobody else to throw
40-point game.
All right,
2 years ago?
I'm cutting it, guys. I'm cutting it.
That was a nice little Marv versus Landry diatribe.
That was great. I
Week
loved
1
it.
fire. That's what the people are here for.
I loved it. We're losing followers by the second.
I hate Marvin Jones.
32 down to 15 in the course of a couple minutes. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's hop onto this. I just need a simple answer. Are you guys starting, a stud up against a very stout defense? Or are you going to fade them? Or, I guess let's just say that it's a 10-team or 12-team league, not a deep league. Is there any chance that you're going to bench Zeke up against Tampa Bay?
For who?
That's
not
the question.
Chance in hell.
Or who? I think did he? Nope. There's nothing else, guys. We need to see who. By the way,
no, just no. It doesn't.
I will revert to what I said earlier, guys. Like,
do you have Alvin Kamara?
If you're not going to start your first round pick in week 1, I mean, come on. Like, what are you doing, guys? Be better. Just don't be bad. Just start Zeke.
What about Andrews or Gus for the flex position?
Mark Andrews?
I'm guessing
someone drafted Mark Andrews to be a flex.
Dude, 2 tight ends, man. They were trying to bogart the tight end position.
Gus for me.
Is it tight end premium? I don't know. Is it 1.5, 1.75? What's the premium?
Hey,
I hope it's premium. If he's
okay, we got to explain it. We got to be gentle, Shane. A lot of these people, it's their first time playing. We're part of a Facebook group, man. Come on, be gentle.
Sorry. So I'll have to also go with I'll go with Gus, although I really love Andrews. Now, why am I not starting Andrews at tight end this week, though? That's what I want to know. Who else did you draft at tight end?
First round pick.
Okay. All right.
Zach Ertz.
Well, then you overdrafted that position anyway.
All right.
But
this is my favorite question, and then we're gonna end up time to make a trade. All right, this is my favorite question, and then we're gonna end up hopping on back to the show sheet. Week 1, Sutton or Judy. This is a tough one because I like Drew Lock with Sutton more. I like Sutton with Drew Lock more, and I like Judy with Teddy Bridgewater more, just because we know that one of them likes to take shots, one of them doesn't. One of them's great at getting open, one of them's not. One of them catches every ball that is contested, the other one doesn't. So
I don't know who you're talking about, by the way.
Do you want me to?
Who can't get open? Who can't get open?
Cortland Sutton likes contested catches.
He likes them? I mean, I don't know if he likes them. It's the
He's
best
just good at
it.
He's pretty good at getting
very
open.
Good. Whatever. God, Shane, you know what I'm saying, all right? Cortland Sutton is better at contested catches. Jerry Judy is better at getting open. right? The quarterbacks correlate with their wide receivers. So I'm going to start with Rich on this one. Rich, which player do you like more for week 1 now that Teddy Bridgewater is the starting quarterback?
For week 1, I have Judy higher. I will say, though, if you're just chasing a touchdown, Sutton's a way better touchdown bet from a projection. But the Giants were actually really good against opposing wide receiver ones. They were 12th in the NFL. I mean, James Bradbury was 6th among all cornerbacks that played 50% more of their snaps in rating allowed in coverage. They did add Adoree Jackson. It's not someone we're really worried about. He had an ankle injury. I think that the sneaky deep play in that out of this group is probably KJ Hamler in week 1. Especially when you think of the matchup.
Yes,
He's their
the
actual slot receiver too. He's their actual slot receiver. When you look at Teddy's catchable target rate, especially to the Panthers wide receivers, the area of the field where Hamler operates is where Teddy was most efficient. So it's going to be something really interesting to monitor, because if this ends up being a 3 wide receiver kind of conglomerate plus Noah Fant, it paired with Teddy Bridgewater, I mean, because you're not going to probably have as much of a path to like passing game script like the Panthers had a year ago. So it's gonna be interesting to see if it turns into being a lot tighter of a target tree than we thought. But I would play Judy. I would have them in rankings as Judy, Sutton, Hamler. But I think Hamler is really interesting this week.
I think he's very interesting for DFS purposes, and he's going to be one of my sleepers for sure. I love him over there in the slot. Do either one of you guys have anything to add for this?
No, I can't tell smarter than Rich Hribarl.
You can. Listen, just
yeah. I mean, Rich honestly said a lot of the stuff that I was going to say. Is that I think people are gonna think Judy's in the slot, and they're gonna want to pick Judy here because they're gonna think Bradbury's up against Sutton. But like Rich said, Hamler's the slot wide receiver. Those tendencies can change this year for sure. But if they don't, then you're looking at 2 outside wide receivers. I'm not entirely sure the Giants are going to line. So I don't know. I have Sutton ranked higher than Judy overall for the year, which I know is not the majority opinion anymore because everyone's decided to lose their minds over the last few weeks, and everyone loves Jerry Jeudy now. But I'm going to stick with Sutton in week 1 and every week until I'm proven wrong.
I think Sutton has a significant advantage over Bradbury compared to Jeudy, most likely lining up against Adoree Jackson. It really depends on how they line this defense up, though, because we see 2 somewhat good or somewhat dominant cornerbacks, depending on who they play, up against their first ever size they play versus shadowing wide receivers.
Can I get I have a question from the audience. Can I get a Lord Reeves air horn?
Maybe. We'll have to see something worthy. Sutton versus Jeudy isn't worthy.
No.
Also, I mean, the pairing of Broncos wide receivers, very, very interesting process here.
I like it. All right, so let's hop on to...
What? With Teddy Bridgewater? Don't look. You can't be nice to people just to be nice. We're here to help people.
I mean, I do get it though, because Sutton.
It's too late to be helped.
Like Jacob kind of alluded to, Sutton just kept falling, in the process. He just kept falling. So there's times where he'd just be there wide receiver 37, wide receiver 38, and he's just on the board, and you're like, well, why the hell not? Why would I not?
Because Teddy Bridgewater is.
Yeah, but Jeudy. I mean, this narrative. Oh my God! I mean, first of all, I haven't podcasted with Chase in 2 weeks, so I forgot how annoyed I get by narratives, and I'm immediately refreshed. All of a sudden, we're talking about things that don't matter for shit, like wide receiver cornerback matchups and which quarterbacks pass other wide receivers and all this other crap.
How do you say that?
The whole notion that we know for a fact because Teddy Bridgewater has a lower ADOT, he's going to throw to Jeudy more. When Jeudy had a ridiculously high ADOT last year, it drives me absolutely frickin' batty. It might be true. It might be correct. Jeudy could totally deck Sutton this year, but people are acting like this is a confirmed fact. Like Teddy Bridgewater at a press conference, and he was like, "Hi, that Cortland guy. Yeah, he screwed my wife. I can't stand him. I'm gonna throw my balls to Jerry." We have no idea.
It was a separation that they got from the actual cornerbacks. Jerry Jeudy was regularly getting open, every single one of his targets that he had, he was almost wide open, and he had multiple drops in it. Cortland Sutton's making towering catches over guys. So
towering.
Yes,
He's
towering.
leaping.
I mean, I really
35 feet in the air, just like this.
Just saying, it's not about the fact of the ADOT. It's about guys being able to get open versus, hey, I'm willing to throw him the ball if he's covered. It's Gabriel Davis corollary. So let's go ahead and go on to flex plays with good matchups in week 1. And I'm going to run through this because we're running way behind.
I blame you. You're
Chase
supposed
Claypool.
to be leading this.
We're going Chase Claypool, right?
Who's we?
I'm going Chase Claypool.
You're going Chase Claypool.
Yeah,
because
you guys were not on point with who you're picking. All right, Chase Claypool up against Levi Wallace and Tre'Davious White, right? Tre'Davious White struggles against bigger wide receivers. That's evident whenever they played, the Seahawks last year along with multiple wide receivers. Meanwhile, Levi Wallace, a lot of big plays. So this Chase Claypool guy who you drafted to be your flex option at wide receiver in most cases, unless you went running back heavy, I think should be started over some studs with some tougher matchups. What do you say? We'll start out with Shane on this one since.
Wait, Chase Claypool is a stud though. Chase Claypool is being drafted like a top 15 wide receiver. Like I've been told repeatedly he's the next Megatron. So I don't even get
Shane. We're talking about ESPN leagues here for most cases, okay?
Where's he ranked in ESPN?
We're not talking dynasty.
Even in ESPN, I can't imagine that he's ranked low.
People play on ESPN.
It's
we love ESPN.
Popular site of all time. Not a sponsor, but
Anyway, Chase Claypool. I don't care who Chase Claypool's matching up on defense. I could care less if Mother Teresa's out there on cornerback and that her shutdown percentage was 90% last year, and that Chase Claypool's separation rate against Calcutta nuns was only 14% or whatever. Dude, it's Chase Claypool. Yes, I'm starting him.
Over a stud though. Let's just hypothetically
he is a stud.
Let's just hypothetically say. Okay, fine.
Give us an example. Who are we playing him over?
All right, so I got a question fantasy football discussion earlier today, and it was DeAndre Hopkins, Allen Robinson, because Allen Robinson has a tough matchup, or Chase Claypool in the wide receiver position because they also have 3 studs of running back in a 10-team league.
Okay, so there you go. I'll take him over Robinson. I'm not taking him over Nook.
I will not play Chase Claypool in that situation. I will play Allen Robinson and DeAndre Hopkins because next time I sit a stud wide receiver because of their cornerback matchup will be the first.
God. All right, Rich, can you balance us out? What's going on, man?
I'm going to just play projected value, man. Or it's going to easily just be Hopkins, Robinson, and Claypool. The Steelers are going to be an interesting team to monitor, right, early in the season. So we know that they have a wealth of wide receiver talent, but we also inherently know that they're going to play a different style of offense than they played last year, especially what they played the back half of last year. And we've already seen that as evidence, granted it's preseason, but look at the amount of jet motion that they've run so far in the preseason. 60% of preseason snaps were at jet motion. It was 44% last year. They use play action 23% of the time. Now, when Ben Roethlisberger played, it was still 20% of the time in the preseason. Granted, limited sample, but last year Ben Roethlisberger used play action 9% of the time. Dead last, didn't even use it. He was also under center for 38% of his snaps in his preseason action. Last year it was just 21%. It's going to be an inherently different offense. They're going to mix in a little more 12 personnel than they did. It might be a little bit more just in the red zone than outside the 20s. So we might see Pat Freiermuth work on a package player when they get into the paint. But this is going to be a different offense. So I think just rolling over all the target shares, these guys will be interesting. Claypool is absolutely the kind of talent I want to bet on big picture, though, right? He's an alpha wide receiver. He gets the kind of targets we care about. He gets vertical targets. He gets end zone targets. It's what we want. It's what we want in fantasy football. But Steelers are going to be interesting to monitor. I can't play him over guys that were borderline first round picks though. I can't even Allen Robinson. Yeah, the matchup sucks. He's been terrible against the Rams every time that they've played. Right. You look at while he's been with the Bears, Allen Robinson has had games of 5 for 42, 4 for 15, and 4 for 70 against this Rams defense. But I'm still going to just play the guy I know that's going to get 12 targets, has a shot to get 12 targets. I'm just going to take those even in a terrible matchup and play them. I think when you're talking about get into the weeds of cornerback matchups, and if you're going to play wide receivers, it's more guys that are closer in terms of grouping and rankings and where you drafted them, like we had with Marvin Jones and Jarvis Landry. That's a discussion. I'm not going to entertain really benching Allen Robinson. I'm sure the matchup sucks. I don't believe Andy Dalton's going to have a good game. I'm not going to bench Allen Robinson.
Right. Nope. And finally, one of the Facebook users drafted well based on his
very
wide
well
receiver questions. Good job. First one that's done that so far that we've seen.
Can I speak glowingly about Chase Claypool for 1 second? Because I feel very bad that I just said to bench Chase Claypool because that's pretty against my brand. First of all, as a Canadian and also as a lover of large, fast receivers.
I was wondering when that was going to hit the podcast. It didn't hit up until now.
Well, where were you?
Look,
Allen Robinson or Claypool? Or Chase? Chase?
Oh, I love Claypool this upcoming week. I think he's going to smash faces.
I want to talk on Claypool just 1 second, because as much as I would totally play Robinson, because yeah, like this is going to be a recurring thing weekly, is that I don't care about what cornerback you play. But Chase Claypool, I mean, he's a guy that I want to bet on early, right? Especially like a DFS. I mean, I'm about to write like 1,000 words, about Chase Claypool almost, because I want to bet on those that cause the benefit of assumptions and those that benefit from assumptions. So on a lot of situations like Pittsburgh, where we don't know everything, right? Rich just spoke in beautiful statistical terms about all of the potential differences in this Pittsburgh offense, right? And there's so much that we want to see. There's so much that we don't know. And really, I mean, you want to bet on positive outcomes. And you want to bet on an offense where Ben Roethlisberger is functional if you drafted Chase Claypool, right? And if you look at the optimistic view of how does this game shoot out, how does the Pittsburgh offense work generally, it's probably because of a stud muffin named Chase Claypool, who's 6'4" and 240 and runs a 4.3 and has been a proven outside weapon, right? Betting on Deontay, betting on Juju more than Chase Claypool, to me, that's like betting on inferior goods. You're betting on people that can benefit from things going wrong. I want to benefit from things going right, and I want to bet on the person who's causing things to go right. So I'm all about Claypool this week in general. I'm all about Claypool always, just not over Allen Robinson, who I think is like a potential, wide receiver 1 every week.
But Juju makes things go right.
I don't care.
So let's go ahead.
We're just like the Juju slander. I'm not appreciating this. This is a pro Juju show, by the way.
No, it's not.
All right, so let's move on, guys. I'm gonna skip the rest of these.
I'm gonna have Jacob deported.
I mean, this is the content I think.
Deported where? To your country?
I mean,
yeah.
Oh,
yeah,
God,
I'm going to have you taken out of nice, cushy, safe Canada
and you're going
sent
to
Philadelphia. I know you saw that Twitter thing that went crazy last week where they were driving through like the poorest cities, parts of Philadelphia that they could find. I'm going to send you there if you continue to slander Juju.
Shane, when I was growing up as a Colts fan, there's nothing I would have loved more than to visit Marvin Harrison, but now I'm not so sure that's the case.
No, Marvin's Harris. No, don't mention his name on our podcast, first of all, because he will body you. And if he doesn't get you the first time, he holds grudges and he will get you eventually. So I love Marvin.
Don't worry, Marvin. If I ever do go into criminal law, I'll be on the defense side, so you're fine.
Rich, how much time do you have? Because I really want to get to the meat and potatoes.
We're still good for a little bit here. We're still good for a little
bit.
We're
not on the meat and potatoes of the show yet?
No, the
Jesus
meat and potatoes.
Christ.
Well, the best part is coming up where we actually trash each other's decisions.
We've been doing that. I mean, we've been doing it.
We have, but it's going to get even
this
worse
is like
here
this is like the Kanye that lift yourself. It's like this next verse, bars. Like, that's you right now.
I'm here for the wide receiver conversation. I think it's fun. That's where, because running backs, man, like there's like 4 good ones, and like it's way more fun to talk about these wide receivers.
Yeah.
So I mean,
right, so
you want to play Claypool, right?
Running back?
So you want to play Claypool. So like you said, you would go Claypool over Allen Robinson, Chase?
I would for week 1 matchup.
What about let's see, where else could we go to question? What about T.
Corey
Higgins?
Davis
Are you playing him over T. Higgins?
Oh no, no, because the volume, along with the volume, but also it's a bad defense. So you have a team, 2 bad defenses up against 2 very good offenses. I just think the correlation could end up resulting in points scored, although Vegas is not going to, implement, I think, 48.5.
Do we know who's a bad defense? Like the correlation of defensive efficiency year over year is like 0.09. I don't think we know who's a bad defense at all.
It depends. It
I like
depends on if it's early on in the season.
We need the Charlie gif in the back of him just like explaining who Pepe is.
I'm the worst person out of a week 1 podcast because all I do is people bring up stats and I'm like, that doesn't matter. That doesn't matter.
If you actually look at it early on the season over the first 4 weeks, it actually does correlate over, especially for new defensive systems that come into play. When you end up signing on a brand new secondary that has never played together outside of the preseason, it normally does not correlate into a good secondary until it takes a few games. We've seen that with Bill Belichick systems, right? We've seen that with Vikings defenses as well, when they draft new guys year after year after year after year. And I think we're going to see that with the Titans as well. But yeah, I would take Higgins over that, who should see volume, because guess what? Cincinnati's defense is not going to be good. Vikings secondary is not going to be good. Although I think that it's not going to be as high scoring as most of these games are. I think we're going to see more points more points than what we're expecting. Let's go ahead and talk about Corey Davis real quick since we're on this conversation. I brought up this guy as one of
When are we going to start trashing each other's takes? Can't we just skip this?
Well, we just talked about how we're going to skip it for the wide
It's already
receivers.
8:52. Come on, man. Keep it moving.
I've only been on the show for 22 minutes. All I've done is trash Chase's takes.
That's very true. All right, so let's go ahead. Let's move on to the takes we're going to trash. Let's go on to the quarterback that we're going to stream. Quarterback that's going to fish.
I got Sam Darnold.
Would
Really
you stop
like
it?
Sam Darnold.
God damn it, Shane. All right, so the quarterback that's being ranked outside of ESPN's top 15 that could finish as a top 12 option. So, for example, we have I have Sam Darnold. Thanks a lot, Shane. Over all these other players. He's up against Carolina. I'm sorry, he's up against the Jets. It's going to be a revenge game. You see offensive weapons all over the place. I mean, I think this game could turn into a potential offensive shootout, although I think it'll still be defensive game based. I just see Sam Darnold throwing for 3 touchdowns this upcoming game, giving you a very solid base. Meanwhile, yeah, he could rush for a couple as well. Damn it, Shane, you have me all off foot. What do you guys think about Sam Darnold finishing as a top 12 option this upcoming week?
Oh, top 12 is a little bolder than I was willing to go. I do have him as a start in my sit-em article for fantasy data this week, but I even mentioned it there. I'm assuming it's a 2 QB league or Superflex league when doing that.
Did you not read the rules that I sent you guys?
No,
I spent like
clearly
hours.
I didn't, because I asked you what rankings we were using, and you go, it's on the sheet. So
I literally sent
no,
you guys paragraph on top of paragraph about what we're going to be talking about.
Yeah, you're going to have to loosen up this year.
That's your problem.
Yeah.
It's the paragraph.
I just need bullet points.
I like my con law prof.
I'll go, how about, what are you drinking, cognac over there, Pop?
No,
I'll go top 16, not top
talking about
12. Top 16? How about that? Is top 16 bold enough for you?
I have music playing in the background somewhere. Jacob, what do you think about Sam Darnold?
Oh, Darnold? I mean, I hope you're right, because pretty much all my Superflex drafts, I was taking Lancer Fields with one of my top 2 quarterbacks, and so I would be sitting at the end of the draft and go, okay, who makes me hate my life the least to start until one of those rookie starts? And usually that was slinging Sammy D. So Sam Darnold's in a lot of my lineups this week. However, that's because I drafted him as my 3rd quarterback. If you're in a 1-quarterback league and you're starting Sam Darnold, I don't question you, but I question your league mates for all drafting backup quarterbacks, because if they're not, why the fuck are you starting Sam Darnold?
Superflex are 2 QB leagues, Jacob. They exist. And I need you to know that ESPN recognizes Superflex leagues now because they have a position called offensive player.
Oh, do they?
That's the Superflex, yeah.
Nice.
Can I start a left tackle there?
In theory, yes, because it's an offensive player. So I'm going to have to talk to ESPN about the fault in their...
I know you guys are connected. Anyway, long answer is I like Darnold in Superflex and not in 1 QB. He's not a top 12 quarterback.
There is, for this week, for week 1, by the way, there is one player that is listed at 5 different positions on ESPN. He's a left tackle, but he's listed at 5 different positions that you can start at the offensive player position, by the way. But yeah, no, so for week 1, you don't think that he's a top 12 option? He's right outside the top 12, or you think you should trash him for week 1?
No, he's in the middle, around where Shane said. I think he's in the mid-teens.
Okay. Rich?
Yeah, I think he's a matchup-based QB2. I think there's some things to be really worried about with Sam Darnold, and what we saw even from the preseason is, one, is this offensive line is just an absolute disaster, and they're already losing their left guard, John Miller. He's out due to COVID. They signed Cam Irving, who's one of the worst left tackles in the NFL. They signed Pat Elflein, who he allowed the 4th highest pressure rate per passing drop back last year. And you saw this affected. When you saw Darnold play in the preseason, his ADOT was just 4.7 yards. Like they looked like the Steelers last year, right at the end of the year, where they just had to get the ball out of his hands. I think there is some concern here. And also I think we just can't, when you look at this Jets defense, we know that the secondary's bad, but they also are going to have a huge scheme change. Like, they are not going to have this Greg Williams all-out blitz, leave their terrible defenders on islands under Robert Saleh. Like, it's going to change. It's going to be a completely different defense. So, although the matchup is good, the wide receivers for Carolina have a distinct advantage, I think there are still some concerns to kind of just make them a matchup-based QB2, like Shane and Jacob alluded to. I don't think I'm not bold enough to go start them in a 1 QB league.
In week 1? You can't stream in week 1?
Week one, in a typical ESPN league, which I'm an expert in now. I don't believe Sam Darnold is actually drafted or rostered. Now, if it's a offensive player league, definitely he's rostered.
So, are you taking Tua Tagovailoa, who Shane picked?
And why did I pick him? I like his name.
Well, earlier you said that if you were beaten as a child, it made you like Tua Tagovailoa more. I think in the pre-show.
Yeah, it's TUA.
No, he can't even say it.
Yeah, I can't even say it. I can barely spell my name. I can spell his name. The hell out of here. No, I think Tua's going to have a giant game. I think he's going to beat the snot out of New England this week. I don't know about their cornerbacks and the matchups and all that good stuff.
They have good ones apparently.
They have good ones.
Yeah,
well, I know they got the one guy back from COVID, so that's helpful. But I just don't think New England's a trash team. They were trash last year, and they're going to be trash this year. And I don't care if Bill Belichick is a genius. Tua's going to smack him around.
Oh man! So it's literally picking a quarterback that's outside the top 15 to finish as a top 12. So we're only talking about 3 spots of a difference.
And Tua is 26, just so you know, off the ESPN rankings.
Yeah,
and
so
any
is there
running
anybody
back
else that can move up a few spots?
Any running back that can rush for a touchdown is going to be have a shot at the top 12 for me when we're doing games like this.
All right, so you guys ready to move on to running back?
Let's go.
Wait, I didn't even give what are our quarterbacks?
Oh, who's your quarterback?
I didn't see.
Can we get quarterbacks?
Yeah, who's your quarterback?
No, I came up with them. I just didn't put it on the sheet.
Well, let's go.
You didn't put it on the sheet.
Just fire away.
Yeah. Okay. Well, mine's
just fire away.
Mine's Matt Ryan. Mine is Matt Ryan. He doesn't have to move up very far. It's very boring, but he's playing the Eagles. The Eagles are a flaming tire fire of disaster. I'm pretty sure that if Shane wanted to try out a la Mark Wahlberg, he would have a pretty decent chance at starting as a slot corner by week 3. And
so here's the thing, real quick. Their slot corner was terrible last year, and so was their QB2. But the reason for that was because their QB2 was actually their starting slot cornerback, and he should have been playing in the slot where he's a decent cornerback. And they traded for a starter this year, so their secondary should actually be a lot better. And Rodney McLeod should be back week 1. That all said, the Eagles aren't a great defense, so I could see it happen.
Shane, you look so good with your hand in the dirt, buddy.
Was that an IDP?
Shane is just sticking his hand in the dirt, talking about slot corners. Absolutely love to see it. No, but I like Matt in this spot. They're going to throw a lot. The Eagles, this Eagles front, I think, is stronger than its secondary, and the Falcons are not going to be very good at running the ball. So I think that Matt Ryan is a volume play, and I could pretty easily see him get 3 touchdowns. If he does get 3 touchdowns, then he's going to be a top 12 quarterback.
Do the Falcons have a U in
Yes.
Canada?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool. I just wanted to ask.
Oh, is this like why I say Falcons instead of Falcons?
Yeah.
Yeah, so Matt Ryan for the Falcons.
All right, so Rich
is going to be a pretty nice quarterback play.
If you don't have a quarterback, I need to hear your pick when it comes to Matt Ryan, Sam Darnold, and Tua Tagovailoa. Which one do you think has the best chance to end up into the top?
I'll take
12.
Matt Ryan out of those guys. I mean, the Eagles are another one of these teams that are interesting because you've got a massive scheme change. Last year, they did something really dumb, right? They had one good cover corner in Darius Slay, and all they did was blitz and play man coverage. They had one, but this year,
weird.
So they hired Jonathan Gannon. Nick Sirianni brings Jonathan Gannon over. The Colts, he coached under Matt Eberflus. He cut under Mike Zimmer. He coached under Steve Spagnuolo. They're going to run way more zone. They were 5th highest rate in man coverage last year with one of the worst set of cornerbacks in the NFL outside of Darius Slay. And the Colts played the 5th highest rate of zone. So they're going to play a lot more zone this year.
Yeah.
The good thing, though, for Matt Ryan is that he was 4th over points in expectation against zone coverage last year. So if he sees a lot of zone, obviously a veteran quarterback, he's going to be able to pick some spots here. We're going to get a lot more play action from the Falcons. Even if they are running bad, they're going to run a lot more play action than they did last year, too. So we'll be able to clear some zones. I like Matt Ryan out of those 3. I don't know what ESPN's rankings are. I'm assuming Trevor Lawrence is in the top 15.
12. It's actually 12. Because I immediately looked for him.
I think Trevor Lawrence is the best streamer if he's available in your league on the board this week. But if I would take Matt Ryan out of the 3 choices you gave me.
All right, so let's go ahead and
Well,
move
this
on
is
to
the
the
last
running
time I'm
back.
having Rich on. If you're going to agree with you at all, like even
Oh,
once is too much.
You're not emotionally prepared for the running back. I'm going deep.
Oh,
All right, so with this one, wait, do you want to start it out, Jacob, since you got to go last this past
Yeah,
time?
please.
All right, let's go.
All right, so look, I made a little Photoshop image today for my main man, Ty Dolla $ign. Carolina Panthers over the last couple of years have been one of the worst rushing defenses in the National Football League, and that might change this year. It's very possible. However, they added a lot actually to their defense that I really like. However, my baseline going in is they're not going to be very good against the rush. If I'm looking for someone off the beaten path this week who can do it without a ton of volume, who might have some positive game script, and who might have a good matchup and can hit in a big play, I'm looking at Ty Johnson. I think he's the lead running back in this New York Jets backfield. I don't think Michael Carter is a factor whatsoever in week one. I think it's him, Tevin Coleman. I think they're going to rotate series, and I think that Ty Johnson's going to come out looking spry and awesome, like the 4'4", 200-pound stud that he is, and Tevin Coleman's going to look old and broken and dead like the guy that he is. And I think that Ty has an opportunity, at least early in the season, before Michael Carter gets acclimated, to really have the kind of role we want for fantasy, where he's a 210-pound running back. He could easily have a goal line role. And he's also got a receiving background, and he's a guy where 3 out of his 4 seasons at the University of Maryland, he averaged 8 yards per carry or more. He's a guy who's a big play threat on any given down. I think we're going to see 12 to 15 carries, 3 to 4 catches from Ty Johnson. He's dirt cheap in DFS. He's probably on your waiver wire. If you're a guy like me who tends to draft 0 RB, hero RB style, I'm starting Ty Johnson with confidence in as many redraft leagues as possible.
So Ty Johnson will end up being a top 12 running back. Good to know.
Yeah, he is. He's going to have 100 yards and a touchdown. Lock it in.
with confidence.
With confidence.
Is there a rushing total on the DraftKings prop for him?
Like, yeah, probably 2.5.
All right, I'm going over. I'm going to smash the over.
All right, Shane, what do you have? Who do you have for your running back?
How do I follow that up? Like, mine's sensible. It's not as fun. It's Miles Gaskin.
Well, I wish I already got Matt Ryan. I wanted to spice it up.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, Miles Gaskin. I mean, he's playing a bad run defense, and he's going to get all the volume, even though
Shane,
everyone.
Did you have the game wrong? Did you think Chase said, "Can you pick a Miami Dolphin outside of the top 12 position?"
Hey, I picked a different receiver and tight end. I might have picked the tight end. So yeah, no.
Did you pick Adam Shaheen? You complied.
Nothing complicated. Nothing overly. Just Patriots give up a lot of yards to running backs, and Miles Gaskins is going to get a ton of volume, and he had the 9th most opportunities per game last year. So I don't see why that's going to change this year, just because Malcolm Brown's there.
All right, so I'm going to go Kareem Hunt at this point. According to Doe's score, the Chiefs are not very good up against pass-catching running backs. Meanwhile, they might have to pass certain points in this game. If they don't, either way, Kareem Hunt could score. They have, 5 games together in 2020 where both players scored above 20 points, at least in DraftKings, when it comes to the running back position for the Browns. I'm thinking that Kareem Hunt could absolutely smash faces this upcoming week. And whether Nick Chubb plays or not.
Whoa.
Wait, you don't want to say smash faces with Kareem Hunt, buddy.
You're getting canceled, brother.
Oh, God, dude.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah,
who's your next pick? Joe Mixon?
Wow.
Some Greg Hardy and IDP?
Joe Mixon's going to punch it in. Like, no, Chase, no.
Dude, I have a tendency to mess up at some point every single
Kareem Hunt's going to play well.
But no, Kareem Hunt will play very, very well, and he will be a very good boy up against the Kansas City upcoming week. I think that he will definitely operate in both the passing game or the receiving game and the run game. So, Rich, if you don't play over your own, do you have one of the players you would favor?
Out of those guys that you gave me, I mean, listen, I would love to just back the Ty Johnson play.
Do it.
It's very tough from an objective stance. I like the call, though. I like the bold flavor. I mean, if you're making me choose out of your guys, I'm going to take Myles Gaskin. I'll throw Gus Edwards out there as a guy. I mean, he's got a 28-point team total. The Raiders allowed the highest rate of scoring drives in the NFL last year. The Ravens are coming in with a kind of banged up, wide receiver core. So I'll go with Gus Edwards.
Oh, I'm gonna put that as a separate one along with your pick.
separate.
But
Mixing it
why,
in.
dude?
Yeah, that is a good one.
Because
That's the correct answer, by the way.
Guess the chance to do it without having to do the research, unless they want to do the research. So I'm actually
just in case anyone was wondering, Ravens, since you like talking about Vegas for some reason, Raiders are underdogs by like 4.5 at home. So Ravens might run the ball about 45 times this game. That's going to be fun to watch.
Well, the Ravens run it 45 times when they lose. If they're going to win, it might be 65.
But yeah, it would be 55 to 65. Gus Edwards with 25 carries, Lamar with 15. The new Gus Edwards with 10 for 70. It's going to be fun.
Trenton's going to be shot out of a cannon.
All right, so y'all know that I love my positional matchups. That's something that
You do? No.
Y'all would never guess, right? I mean, it's not like
I'm gonna have to leave the show.
And you actually talk about DK Metcalf being up against Tre'Davious White, and getting dominated, along with multiple other cornerbacks that are small, undersized, that are not as powerful. I mean, you just play those up against those guys. Meanwhile, guys like Patrick Peterson, who can actually match up, tend to shut DK Metcalf down. So I was going to go actually with Juju up against the Bills. Teron Johnson lets up a ton of receptions. He doesn't allow a lot of big plays. However, if the Bills end up providing pressure with their brand new rookies on the defensive line, I think that Juju could do it. However, the upside is limited. So once again, I'm going to roll with Claypool in this offense up against the new edge rushers. I feel like Claypool could just be that guy up against Levi Wallace. If he lines up on the other side up against Tre'Davious White, he's going to struggle. I'm going Chase Claypool.
Wait a minute. Okay. Yeah. That's fine.
Yeah, I mean, I had to fill out the rest of the show sheet earlier because, yeah. But do you guys have another wide receiver that you all would roll with?
Oh, I went with DJ Chark.
Why?
You have an explanation?
Did I need an explanation for DJ
No,
Chark?
I mean, we can move on to Jacob if you want.
I mean, Jacob's going to come with like AJ Green or someone if the follow-up is Ty Johnson.
Wait, did Jacob guess your guy?
I was literally going to talk about AJ Green.
Dude, no one was going to talk about AJ Green at any point this season.
No, okay.
Okay.
Yeah, so I wasn't making AJ Green my pick, but I actually hyped up AJ Green on Twitter today as a DFS play. That's probably why Shane said that. And I was considering making AJ Green my pick for this segment, but I decided I would only do one insane one. So this is going to be a lot more logical. We already talked about this situation, one of the worst secondaries, going up against a team in a revenge game. Keep in mind, Sam Darnold's not the only revenge game on this slate. He's got his buddy Robbie Anderson also in this same game. That's where I'm going for this one. Robbie Anderson last year, to DJ Moore truthers like myself's great displeasure, was essentially functioning as the Carolina Panthers' fantasy wide receiver one, or at least their most targeted wide receiver. I think as we see this year go along, we're going to see Terrace Marshall integrate a lot more. I think most weeks, DJ Moore will be the wide receiver roster in Carolina. However, I still think Robbie Anderson's going to be very heavily involved, and he has a really unique skill set in the sense where he was used last year in short areas of the field. He was used as a possession guy, and also he has the opportunity, of course, to stretch it in a big play on any given opportunity. But specifically in this matchup, where I think you're going to have a Jets front seven that's much improved, but a secondary that's a lot weaker, I think they're going to want to get the ball out shortly. And at least last year, that was Robbie Anderson's role, running those slants, running those drags across, getting the ball in his hands as much as possible. I could easily see Robbie Anderson getting 8 catches this year and people tilting it on Twitter with "here we go again" with Robbie as a wide receiver one. And so in a revenge game, I like Robbie Anderson this week.
Rich, you have one.
What do I have to choose outside of what's the ranking?
The top 20.
The top 20? All right. How about Devontae Smith? He's out of there, right? There's no way he's ranked in the top 20.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's way too low. Yeah.
So I like Devontae Smith in this matchup. I like him as a DFS play a lot too. He's pretty cheap. In a game that has potential to shoot out, like Jacob kind of alluded to, it's a fun game stack game. So when you look at Jalen Hurts, he had the highest 8 out of any quarterback last year. He also led all rookie quarterbacks, Justin Herbert included, in yards per pass attempt from a clean pocket. The only problem was he didn't get a lot of clean pockets because the Eagles' offensive line was the most injured offensive line in the NFL. They had the most adjusted games lost. They had 14 different offensive line combinations. They're coming into the season season. Healthy. He's going to be going to Dean Pease Falcons defense that is doing the things that we talked about some of those other teams did. They don't have the coverage guys in the back end, but they're going to blitz. They are going to blitz. That's what Dean Pease does. So we're going to get some downfield shots, some opportunities against the bad secondary, a quarterback that's willing to elevate, push the ball vertically. The Falcons already last year allowed 4.1 completions of over 20 yards per game. That's 31st in the NFL. So I'll go Devontae Smith. I think he leads the Eagles in targets right out of the box. So he's a fun swing. We'll go with the rookie.
Shane, how does it make you feel that you took, your team's best player and literally just, touted him in front of your face as the guy that you did not pick?
Did he pick Terry McLaurin? Whatever. He picked an Eagle. He's a smart guy. What do you want me to tell you? He just gave a bunch of reasons. That's why I'm on the show.
I think the Eagles are going to outright win on Sunday.
Ooh, I like it. I like it a lot.
Love that.
I actually believe so too. And actually, every reason that you stated, I actually picked Jalen Reagor as a DFS sleeper for literally everything across the board that you stated.
I think he's going to be the one that gets the targets and not Smith.
No, I think Smith will see more targets. I just think Jalen Reagor will dominate that secondary in the deep ball, area. Although Jalen Hurts isn't the most accurate person, all it takes is 2 plays for Jalen Reagor to pay off at what, $4K, I believe, or $3,800. So that's actually why I took Jalen Reagor for this upcoming DFS.
How much was Devontae? Why didn't you go with Devontae?
He's right there. I think it was actually 3K or something like that. But
you should probably get him. He's cheaper.
He is, and receptions are great, but I need to see a bonus for that plus 3 points, and I need to see touchdowns. I don't know that Smith will see either one.
I don't know. Have you watched any of Smith's game? Because he's going to just eviscerate cornerbacks in the NFL. Like, there's going to be a lot of moments where it's like, oh, I think the coverage fell down, and you're going like, oh, no, he just broke that dude's ankle.
That's great if he gets bracket coverages, though. It'll leave Jalen Reagor open on the backside. I don't even like Jalen Reagor. I hate Jalen Reagor. And yet I still think this is the perfect match.
Well, he's no
backdoored you into defending Jalen Reagor.
I can't believe you guys haven't discussed Quez Watkins yet, the true alpha in Philly.
Love some Quez Watkins.
Hey, who's their slot corner in Atlanta?
No.
What was his separation rate?
Shane, you already know. I was writing my articles and I was talking to you about Quez Watkins and how great he was going to do this upcoming week as well, because I think it's going to be very pass heavy, and I don't even know who to start from either game. But
so just all the Eagles wide receivers.
All the Eagles.
But I'm probably just going to go with Smith.
Sorry.
And their tight ends. Add the tight ends too.
Yeah.
All right, so we have all these locked in for next week. All these are locked in. We're going to figure out which ones we had right, which ones we had wrong, but we still have tight ends left to do.
Ty Johnson seems like a lock. I don't know.
I mean, it's the spiciest call. I mean, you should get bonus points if it hits, for sure.
That's what I was going to say. It feels like there definitely should be some vig on that action.
I feel like that should have been last year, too, because I always was the last person entering my picks, and I always pick guys that are outside the top 30 because I didn't have a chance to pick any of the ones that anybody else went with. So maybe we'll add some bonus points out this year.
That was my theory, right? I figured I would take. Well, here's my thing, right? I figure I'm going to take 2 that are very reasonable that I'm probably going to be correct on, and then that's going to be enough because Chase and Shane are going to make a bunch of dumb picks that won't hit. So I'll already have it 1 after the 2. So now I'm playing with house money, and if I'm correct with Ty Johnson, then I just look so cool. So that's it's very different.
Rich, you are forever invited onto this to help us tone down Jacob's ego.
Jacob wasn't here. He's exactly reinforcing what we talked about to open the show. I mean, you got to have that hot takes so you could pull the receipt up.
the receipt.
Ty Johnson.
He's looking for the Ty Johnson receipt.
Oh, I cannot wait for him.
Like, Chase, you're talking about my ego. All I'm going to say about Ty $ Johnson is it hurt my ego when you walked away.
All right, so let's go to tight ends. We have Jared Cook up against Washington. We already talked about him earlier. I don't need to justify anymore. Jared Cook up against Washington is the only, tight end that I see outside of there that actually has a guaranteed role this upcoming week. I think people are sleeping on Jared Cook, although he's not my favorite tight end. It's just week 1 tight end that I want to stream.
Yeah, I like Brian Neal's question over here, so I'm just going to get to that. Trade Nick Chubb for a wide receiver. Who should I target? Well, first of all,
really, Shane?
I love that.
Sorry, don't look at names.
Dude, this is where Shane learned where comments existed. Was this show last year? Because we have so many Facebook comments. He's just scrolling down, and we'd be in the middle of the show, and he would be like, "I just want to answer this question. I'm going to pick this." Well, this pick a comment that was way down super low, and it answered it in the middle of a segment.
Zach Ertz is mine because any tight end outside the top 13 that can score a touchdown can make it into the top 12 because tight end is a wasteland except for the top 9. But Brian,
I'm gonna have to figure out one on the fly because I was totally gonna say Zach Ertz and I didn't know that Shane was gonna pick Zach Ertz.
So, Brian, if you're going to trade Nick Chubb for a wide receiver, that's fine. Don't target a name. Just any top 8 wide receiver is who I'm targeting. I'm not taking any less than that, especially in redraft. Thank you for coming to my talk.
Yeah, if you want to trade Nick Chubb, you go to your rosters in your league and you look at who doesn't have running backs. And then you work from there.
That's a great idea. Or unless I'm in your league, in which case I decided to trade Nick Chubb for a wide receiver the second that I hit enter league. And then I went, oh, where am I picking? Okay, what wide receiver is available? All right, I'll pick them. So I don't want Nick Chubb.
ESPN has a trade assistant that is horrible. Watson, I think, and he or she or they will give you recommendations to make in your league. Don't ever take those because they are god awful. I did it the other day because I'm in an ESPN charity league, and I just was like, what would happen if I asked for assistance from a computer? And I felt safer. Like we might be able to beat AI if like Watson, ESPN's trade analyst, is the AI that we have to contend with.
Could you get Calvin Ridley for Nick Chubb or DeAndre Hopkins? That'd be like kind of where I go, right? Like I'm not a Nick Chubb guy. Like there's a very small set of running backs that I will take in rounds 1 or 2 when I'm on the clock, and generally those are running backs that are young and catch passes. And Nick Chubb, while I think he's possibly the best runner in the entire National Football League, doesn't catch passes, and that makes him pretty unattractive to me in fantasy. If you did take Nick Chubb, you probably paid a very hefty price. So I would keep him. He's very good at football, and he will score a lot of fantasy points, unless you can get like Calvin Ridley or DeAndre Hopkins for him.
Mm-hmm. You better get somebody that you can tell yourself can be the wide receiver 1, but they got to be at least an elite wide receiver 1, top 8 or so. I love Ridley, man. Ridley's going to smash this year. You can get Ridley for Chubb. I'd make that trade repeatedly and then worry about my running back position later. But yeah, anyway.
That's actually what it'll say on my tombstone chains. It'll say Jakob Sanderson. He worried about the running back position later.
In the afterlife.
Yeah, he's just starting to worry about it now. He's buried alive. Chase, can I give you a tight end? I guess since I was so late.
Yes, please give me a tight end.
All right, so I was gonna pick Zachary Ertz. However, Shane took him, and since I was both late to go on the sheet and then late to come on the show, I suppose that's the price that I pay. So, like we already talked about the Bears Rams game. We talked about Allen Robinson's very difficult cornerback matchup. So now we're at the part of the show where I finished a couple of beers, and I'm going to pretend that does matter. And so that means that the Rams, who are going to win this game, by the way, by 4 touchdowns, the Bears will be throwing the ball quite a bit. And apparently they won't throw it to Allen Robinson because he has a difficult cornerback matchup. So that means that they have to throw it towards Cole Kmet. Cole Kmet is my favorite late round tight end this year. If I'm going to pick somebody in the late rounds, I want it to be someone who actually has an opportunity to break out. I think the Darnell Mooney hype has gone too far in terms of where I'm getting him as a value at ADP. So in redraft formats, even though I was never a big Cole Kmet guy in Dynasty, I've been scooping up Cole Kmet like crazy on Underdog and DraftKings if ever I need a second tight end. And I think this sets up pretty well because the Rams, they're going to send pressure, most likely. They're going to be doing what they can to take away Allen Robinson. And so probably you're going to see Andy Dalton checking down quite a bit to Cole Kmet until he is eventually either literally killed by Aaron Darnold or pulled for Justin Fields mercifully.
Hey, Rich, real quick, I have a question for you specifically. How many snaps do you think Jalen Ramsey lines up against Darnell Mooney in this upcoming game?
It's tough to say because they moved him all around last year. I don't even believe he shadows Robinson either. And when you look at Robinson,
that's the one he didn't. And got burned.
Remember he got beat on the double move. And it's basically why
Darnell Mooney's ADP went up 2 rounds because of that video.
Yeah, the one
ball he didn't catch.
The one thing about Allen Robinson too this year compared to previous years. Is that remember when Anthony Miller got traded? Everyone drew the parallel of like, oh, this is so great for Darnell Mooney. They're doubling down.
Like, no.
But really what it meant is that Allen
Jimmy
Robinson
Miller
is going to
didn't
run a
exist.
lot more routes out of the slot than he has the previous 2 years because you have Darnell Mooney, Marquise Goodwin, and Damiere Byrd, all field stretchers. Now you look at Allen Robinson, he's a guy that already has had success in the slot. He ran just 28% of his routes in the slot in 2020 after 40% his first year at the Bears. He's going to move back inside, get a lot more efficient targets than he had last year, a lot more freebies. You know, we like those freebies mixed in. We like those versatile guys. Keenan Allen's lived like this for years, where he's not an exclusive slot guy, but he gets enough slot targets to just really milk that floor. And then if you run into a year like last year where he has the most touchdowns in his career outside of his rookie year, you run into a big season. That's kind of what Allen Robinson's working
Well,
with.
like Diggs last year too, right? Like he actually got worked into the slot sometimes last year and was getting peppered.
Yeah, so I mean, I don't look at the Rams matchup as a Jalen Ramsey versus Allen Robinson. That's why you fade. I mean, I don't think that's how. I think that's a misnomer like cornerback matchups get. Is a lot of people say, well, he's gonna be working with this guy, but there's no true like snap count, right? Like people say, like, all right, well, he is a primary left wide receiver. This guy's a primary right cornerback. But when you break down the percentage of snaps, it's literally like 18 routes in a game against one player, and they might not be man coverage routes. They might be in a zone. There's a lot of nuance that goes into it, and I think is misrepresented in cornerback wide receiver matchups. But I will think as a bulk whole, the Rams pass defense versus the Bears passing offense is what leads you to believe that it's a tougher matchup, and that's what's bore out the last 3 times Allen Robinson has played the Rams. And you look at this offensive line the Bears have versus this Rams front, it's just going to be a bad passing matchup in general for this team. But that said, Allen Robinson's probably going to get like 12 targets still. You just kind of see how efficient they are. You're just going to take the volume and run. You can discount him, but we're always going to chase the volume first. So, I mean, it's always a little tough when you just bring up the raw matchups of cornerback versus wide receiver. I'm looking at more as like a whole, this unit versus that unit, and that kind of is like where I'm seeing like the downside. This Bears team might not score an offensive touchdown Sunday night. I don't know. So it could be tough.
It might not. No, but I think it's...
Rich, I have a question. You mentioned the Bears passing offense, and I just want to know, do they have one?
I mean, they're going to drop back. I mean, the thing that scares me about the Bears, and I think it was a real problem in the preseason, is highlighted, is they might have the worst offensive line in the NFL. They signed a 39-year-old Jason Peters to play left tackle. It's really rough.
Hey, Shay, you're familiar with his work?
He's starting there?
Yeah, he's starting.
Because Tevin Jenkins is having surgery.
Yeah.
Oh, that's very
Yeah,
bad.
because they drafted a rookie, he got hurt, and then immediately after they drafted Jenkins, they cut Charles Leno.
They're all pro.
So they're starting Jason Peters' corpse out there.
Oh, yeah, no, that's terrible. Because look, I love Jason Peters. Obviously, he's an Eagles fan. That dude should have retired 4 years ago. Last year, he was maybe the worst offensive lineman I've ever seen, ever. And I forget if he got hurt or they ended up benching him and just lied to him and told him he was hurt. But they eventually gave in and were just like, look, we'll start the rugby player over you and just see what we have because it can't be worse. And thankfully for them, it wasn't.
It sucks. Like he was one of the best left tackles of our generation, and he's turned into a
tight end too in college.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Well, he was a converted tight end, right? That's why he was at
great
UDFA.
Buffalo Bill as well. But yeah, when we're talking like matchups, though, it's only like a last resort. So your analysis for a player should always start with the player. And then when you get a lot down the line to where you have to break a tie, maybe with 2 guys you have equal, you might start factoring in the matchup. So that's why I said, like, we got the guys we rubbed Allen Robinson against earlier. It's just he's not in the same bracket of those players, so it's hard to just outright fade him versus one of those players, where you have more of a conversation versus Jarvis Landry and Marvin Jones, and the matchup might come into play and kind of sway your kind of angle there. So that's the only time like we really get like where I really like am going in. I write about matchups the whole entire season. But you're never going to fade a player, use it as a tiebreaker. You might use it to discount a player, but when you're setting your lineup, you're still going to start guys in similar tiers and tier guys off. So it's really tough. You're not going to go into the weeds and take, I don't know, like say who has a
Darnell Mooney over, like
DeAndre Hopkins,
Cooper Kuppers.
Well, you're not going to take Rondell, say like Rondell Moore, like has a great outlook, right? Like this could be a high shootout. Right. We want to play Rondell Moore. Like when you're looking at it objectively, you say this is a spot where I want to look at playing Rondell Moore. He's going to get a lot of touches in your line of scrimmage. They're free catches in PPR. It's got a great matchup. It's got a high game total. The weather is going to be almost 90 degrees in week 1. If you look at week 1, like hot weather games, like defenses melt. There's literally like high scoring games over 85 85 degrees all the time in the early season. So like we want to play Rondale Moore, right? If I have Rondale Moore, I'm looking. It's like, man, I want to play him, but I'm not going to play him over Allen Robinson. Like, you know what I mean? So like that's, you can't always just get caught up in the matchup weeds. You got to be able to see the big picture a little bit.
No, but I think like there's certain
I'm going to toss an analogy.
What the hell, Jacob? I think
You're
lagging.
so slow at your delivery. You're too slow at your delivery. You just got to jump in there. You just got to jump in, Chase.
Sorry, no, you lagged. Go for it, Chase. I'll give my analogy afterwards.
It might have been me that lagged, actually. But no, I mean, as we sit there and we look at certain matchups, right? Like there's certain things that certain players give up on a regular basis. And I really do believe in matchups when the tiers are close.
Right.
So sitting there and matching up certain tiers that are close is completely different than throwing in, like we talked about, Rondale Moore over an Allen Robinson. So like a Chase Claypool that we talked about, who's close in a tier, he might be 2 or 3 tiers below. You know, he's still a comparative matchup, I guess, advantage over an Allen Robinson, who might have it a little bit tougher. But Allen Robinson, they're going to figure out a way to get him open regardless. Like he's the focal point of that offense. Without Allen Robinson, that offense does not exist. So I'm not going to take somebody out necessarily, for a later target than, I guess, an Allen Robinson type player.
So what Rich just said.
Okay, now I'm going to try this. And I apologize. I'm quite sure, by the way, this whole show, the lag has been on my end because I've been watching like each of the 3 of you lag to me, and my Wi-Fi like conked when I tried to join the first time, so it's totally on my end. I'm not trying to rudely interrupt people.
No, it's all good.
I just don't see you talking until like 5 seconds after you've already done it. I think the way I would look at this is, for instance, I do this podcast every week with Chase and Shane, and it's generally a pretty good use of my time, and I enjoy it. I look forward to it. And then when Chase is like, "Oh, we have Rich Hribarl on," who's like on my Mount Rushmore of analysts that I would love to talk to, I'm like, wow, that's a really great matchup. I definitely want to do that. But then if one of my other buddies was like, hey, me and you were playing Augusta National tonight, like I would leave the podcast so fast because like that's just an entirely different tier. So that's to me really what this comes down to.
What's the Augusta National?
The golf course.
Oh my God.
Met only still, right?
All right, so let's go ahead and close this episode out. If there's questions up here, because we have a ton of them, I'm going to stay on. I'm going to answer these questions from my perspective. If any one of the guests want to stay on and answer them, I'm going to do literally like one-word answers to an extent. However, you guys are more than welcome to go free. Yeah. Be free.
I've got about 1 minute. If you got one question for me, I'll shoot.
No. Don't worry
about it.
This
is fun, though. I like your guys' the kind of rapport you guys have. Everyone coming from different angles. It makes it fun. People want to hear conversations like this. They do. They want us to hey, man, I like Chase Claypool. Man, I don't like him. People want to hear the why and not, right? They want to have the information.
Screaming. Like ESPN, it's like, we're having.
They want to have the information. Lay out the pro and con side. We're providing information. It's not my lineup. You play. When you set your lineup, it's not mine. So we'll provide the information. I tell us people all the time. I provide the information for you, the pros and cons. It's up to you though what you do with it. So. I like it. I like this. It was fun, man. We'll have to do it again. I would like to do it again when we can. It gets a little tougher in season, but just reach out. We'll try to make something happen. But other than that, it was great. Remember, Shane, I did recognize you, and I came up to you and introduced myself to you.
All right. Well, like I said, let's go ahead. Let's go through these closeouts. Let everybody know where to find each other. And I'm gonna stay on to answer the rest of these questions for as long as we actually have viewers. So. We'll start out with you, Rich. Where can we find you? What do you do? Why are you qualified way more than any one of us actually are?
I don't think that's true, by the way, as well. I definitely don't think I'm like an absolute better analyst than anyone else doing. Anyone else can do this if you put the work in and do it. It's just if you want to be a lunatic and
like 2 hours a week, right? Counts.
But hey, I'm at Lord Reeves on Twitter. All my work is at sharpfootballanalysis.com. I'm all over a bunch of shows every week. You can find them. Just find my feed. I'll link them out. I talk to you, Chase, in off-season. Typically, just reach out if you guys want me to do something, and I'll probably do it if I can. I'll do everything in my power.
He's so cool about that, man.
So, listen. It was great. It was great talking about Marvin Jones versus Jarvis Landry, the hottest Week 1 topic that we could come up with.
This is how you know you're in it, right?
The decision that every very mediocre team that drafted too many running backs has to make.
But look,
Marvin Jones
That's
versus
so
Jarvis Landry.
true.
But
Dude,
look,
Jacob, that's
and in
so
dynasty,
true.
but in dynasty leagues, you're making.
I would
decisions
never
like
make that decision.
In
Yeah,
dynasty
absolutely.
leagues, you are making decisions like that.
All right, Shane, where can we find you?
Dynasty Trades HQ. I don't even know the name of this show or what time it is anymore now. Apparently, we're on Wednesday night.
It's now Fantasy Intervention. The first 2 letters changed, Shane. That's
So
it.
we're Fantasy
We moved a
Intervention?
day, and then we changed the first 2 letters.
So we're no longer Dynasty Intervention. So I'm no longer on Dynasty Intervention, apparently. So you can't find me there, but you can find me here, writing for DLF, Fantasy Pro, or Fantasy Data, and Mannequin Chill on YouTube's. That's it. Twitter too.
Yeah, well, first of all, you can find me right here for the next 28 minutes until my auction league kicks off, answering these questions with Chase, because I missed the first 20 minutes, and so I'm certainly not going to miss any extra time. However, if anyone is piecing out now, first off, I just want to say, look, as you can tell, I'm by far the youngest person on this podcast. Growing up as a high schooler, learning fantasy football, there is very, very few analysts that would ever have me more excited about the prospect of being on a stream with than Rich frickin' Hribarl. I got the notification on Twitter today that said @Lords Reeves is following you, and I texted my buddy immediately and I said, I now have 2 of my 4 Mount Rushmore follows of all time. So this is the coolest thing ever, and I'm so mad that I ended up being late to Wi-Fi and con law. However, you can find me on Twitter at ff_RTDB. You can find me on a lot of places all of a sudden, because for whatever reason I decided that once law school started, I would just commit to way more podcasts and articles. That seems bad. But you can find me on Wednesdays with Chase and Shane, of course. You find me on Fridays hosting the Full Tilt Dynasty podcast. That still is a Dynasty podcast. So, Shane, if you ever want to reprieve, you can come on with Tom Tipple and Big Billy. And then you can find on Saturday my inaugural episode of my DFS show of the Full Tilt Network, No Free Swears. I'm super, super excited for that. It's going to start off as a solo show, but I'll be bringing some guests on. And lastly, you can find my weekly DFS column on Player Profiler called The Pareto Principles, in which we'll be taking a market theory approach at especially single entry 3-max DFS tournament lineups. Each week, we're going to look at something sort of philosophical, something market-based, and we're going to try and see how we can apply that to a structural concept to build your lineups that week. I think it's a really unique addition to the DFS landscape. It's something I wanted to write for a long time, and I'm super excited to do that. And lastly, if you want to check out my latest piece on Player Profiler, I wrote about handcuffing in the wake of the J.K. Dobbins injury and the Travis Etienne injury and all the other injuries, and why it still means that cuffing season is never, and why you shouldn't do that. So that's everything I got going on. It's quite a bit, and I'm always just excited to be here.
No, I love it, man. And honestly, just go check out our content over there at fantasyintervention.com. Once again, that's fantasyintervention.com. I'm going to leave it at that. You took up the plug airspace. So, no, I'm very, very excited to sit there and move forward with this group. And thank you, Rich, for coming on. Shane, thank you once again. And thank you all for listening to our fantasy football podcast. We're just going to go on and answer a few questions. So you guys are more than welcome to leave.
I'm on mute, so I was saying thanks, Rich. But yeah, I got to go. But maybe next week I'll be able to stay on a little longer.
Yeah, I mean, we'll figure out next week to where we can answer a little bit, a few more questions.
I got to be honest with you. I got a feeling that this is a show for the people, and the people seem to want to ask questions. I think.
Dude, we have 200 questions we got to answer. I'm
ready
to rock and roll on.
I think that's what we got to lean into. Is people want answers.
This did not change from last season, by the way. This is just something we have to adjust to.
I think I was drinking last year, and I don't remember my my appearances on this show, but. Barkley, would you rather on 20? Barkley's anyway,
wait, you can't answer a random question. If you want to stay on, you got to answer the question.
No, I got it. I do have to go. But
all right, Shane's gonna be joining me.
Watching.
Shane's gonna be here. Jacob's gonna be here with me, and Jacob actually should be popping back on with me in a second. Goodbye, Shane. We're gonna answer these questions real quick as we can. Like I said, Jacob will be back on here very shortly. But I'm going to go ahead and start out with this question. Gus Edwards or Kareem Hunt in full PPR this upcoming week. Hunt's game environment this week is obviously it's fire. And I think that Kareem Hunt is one of my favorite plays, not only for just regular leagues, but also DFS as well. There are 5 different weeks where both Hunt and Chubb combined for over 40 fantasy points. And I think week 2, they actually combined for over 50. If not, it was very, very close. So I like Hunt upcoming against the Chiefs. I think he's a smash play, especially if it comes to a shootout. Jacob, you're backstage, but your device is not connected still. So we'll see if that actually fixes very soon. RBR. I don't even know how to say the name. I'm trying. It's starting Antonio Brown Thursday night versus Dallas, or Damian Harris up against Miami. If you decide to start Antonio Brown, make sure he's not in your flex. That's a very kind reminder to not make sure that your flex position is not used on a Thursday night. If you decide to play a different player, make sure you swap them out into that flex position in the wide receiver or the running back spot. I'm going to go with Damian Harris up against Miami. I think it's a good spot overall. Oh, look, we have Jacob joining us again. Thank you, Jacob.
It's been an adventure. That the Wi-Fi held up for about as long as it could, and then right when we were signing off, it was like, nope, done with you. But I'm back for.
Thank you for rejoining, because I was struggling through an hour and a half long podcast, and then having to go solo. That was really, really tough. So thank you for coming back on. I can do a 2-hour long podcast, but just not solo. That would have been a nightmare. But anyways, so full PPR flex question. Starting Antonio Brown Thursday night versus Dallas or Damian Harris. I start off by saying make sure that guy that you're starting in the flex is actually in a positional advantage, just in case make sure it's not in the flex position itself. I'm going to go with Antonio Brown up against Dallas, who is susceptible to deep passes. Dallas being the defense. It's tough, man. Like, they can't throw 600 touchdowns, but it feels like 600 touchdowns, could be valuable in this game, or could be, actually like happen in this game, theoretically speaking. So Antonio Brown for you or Damian Harris?
Yeah, it's Antonio Brown for me. I think that Damian Harris is a bit of a wait and see play. I do like him this week with Ramondre dealing with that dislocated thumb. They said he's healthy enough to play. I wouldn't be surprised if that's sort of on an emergency basis. I'm not sure that Bill Belichick's going to trust him to go back there and pass block or carry the ball if he doesn't really have the proper functionality of his fingers. So I think Harris can get a lot of touches, but at the same time, he's a very, very game script dependent play. I think Miami wins this game by a touchdown or more. And as soon as they fall behind, we're going to start to see a lot more James White and a lot less Damian Harris. I like Antonio Brown, especially if Chris Godwin's potentially dealing with a lingering injury. I know he's going to play, but even if he's not at 100%, give me AB here.
All right. Should Jay start Laviska Shenault against Houston or over Allen Robinson against LA? This is where we come to the situational, disagreements where it's like the matchups. And Allen Robinson, I think he's matchup, he's not match dependent. There's certain wide receivers in the top 24 that I think are matchup dependent, especially, guys on the outside like Mike Evans, right? Who, if they end up facing double coverage, they don't perform as well. And this is a wide receiver who could be a top 10 wide receiver very easily this year with Mike Evans. However, Allen Robinson is not that guy. And this is why, I struggle from time to time performing. So if you need ceiling, it does matter. I'm going Allen Robinson, actually, now that I think about it. They could stop passing over there for Jacksonville. I don't see Laviska Shenault ever having the highest ceiling in the world, and Allen Robinson has a tremendous floor with a decent ceiling.
Yeah, it's Allen Robinson here. Laviska, I think, is a guy who might be a little bit dependent on the game environment each week. We'll see what his role is. I'm a big fan of Laviska Shenault. I would love to see him used in that full-time wide receiver role. But I think the median expectation is that he's probably going to play most of the snaps in 11 personnel. He's probably going to get a lot of short touches. In games where they're behind and games where they're able to use that yak ability a lot, that could make sense. I could see him getting some 12, 13 target games. I don't think that happens this week. I think he's more of a 6 to 7 target play and probably at a low ADOT. So give me A-Rob here as I run to go grab a beer. I can still hear you, though. I've updated to a Bluetooth system. So
No, it works out. All right, so let's go ahead. Let me move back to the screen. Let's go ahead and bring up. What's up, Jamal? Mr. Brooklyn Lands. He wants to know if you should play Robbie Anderson over DeAndre Swift PPR. Robbie Anderson has a matchup against the Jets, which I know Jacob loves. Meanwhile, DeAndre Swift has a tough matchup up against the 49ers. I mean, DeAndre Swift, like with that matchup, will probably end up in the slot a lot often. The 49ers struggle in the slot, but they don't struggle with big plays in the slot. They just give up a lot of volume because they think, hey, we can let them catch in the slot. We'll attack them right away. The linebacker is responsible for a lot of that. I'm actually on the board for this one with probably Robbie Anderson with the higher upside, but I don't think DeAndre Swift is a bad play at all. I think both of these can end up performing at a high level.
Yeah, I'll take Swift here. I know that I vouched for A-Rob in the earlier section among wide receivers, but I mean I'm on record saying I think DeAndre Swift is going to end up being the fantasy MVP this year. I'm a huge fan of DeAndre Swift. Chase claims to be a fan of DeAndre Swift. He has a DeAndre Swift jersey behind him, but apparently, he's a fair weather fan. So he's going to go with Robbie Anderson. That's fine. I'll go with DeAndre Swift. I will remain faithful to my love.
Get the fuck out. All right, here we go.
I hope you don't treat women the way that you treat your favorite football players. Jesus,
hey, how
Chase.
many shares are you going to have of DeAndre Swift in DFS this upcoming week?
Not that many, because I'm not going to play that many lineups, but I will have a couple. Because I think he's going to be not rostered at all. I will be totally honest with what I'm playing. I'm going to play one cash lineup, and I'm going to play it in a million contests. Swift will definitely not be in that. And then I'm going to play 7 tournament lineups. I'm playing the $50 red zone. I'm playing 3 in the Engage 8. And I forgot what it's called, but I'm playing the 3 max 15 entry, $15. And I will probably have Swift in one of the 3 max contests I do, but I won't be like maxing or anything like that.
All right, so let's go ahead and hop on to this next question, as I'm on a different screen. If Eckler misses week 1, do I start Mixon? Huh?
He's not going to miss week 1.
But if he does...
Yeah, but he's not.
But if he does, we got to answer this question. If he does, let's just say he's, he gets food poisoning, okay, and they have to go for Mixon or go for.
So he means Justin Jackson. Josh Jackson was once the 4th overall pick in the NBA draft, and I'm pretty sure he's out of the league now. This question is an advertisement for zero running back. If Austin Eckler misses this game and you're considering starting Justin Jackson, which shout out to the people's running back, Justin Jackson, who you actually don't even know their name. If you're open to starting a running back whose name you don't know, instead of Joe Mixon, who you would have drafted in round 2, I've never seen a better argument for zero running back in my life.
All right, let's go.
Don't you agree?
Segments. I love.
That's why you go zero RB, because you're starting running backs and you don't even know the name, and you're like, yeah, same deal as Joe Mixon. And you know what? He's right. It is the same.
He's right. Deebo Samuel, Brandon Cooks, or Connor. He needs a flex, or needs a wide receiver and a flex. So wait. So we're picking.
So this is pick 2 then. Pick 2.
Yes,
then, right?
This is a pick 2. This is a little bit more difficult than the questions we'll be handling because Brandon Cooks could go off up against Jacksonville if he catches 1 or 2 big passes. Deebo Samuel up against Detroit. They might not pass as often, but efficiency is all you need. Meanwhile, Connor up against Tennessee. So I feel like Tennessee's defensive front 7 is better than their back half, and I think it's going to end up.
Yeah, they sell out to stop the run. They're a funnel D.
And they're even worse this year because, they brought in Janoris Jenkins, but they now have a very inexperienced secondary. So I don't think that.
And Janoris Jenkins isn't good.
Yeah. Well, he struggles.
He hasn't been good in like 4 years.
He struggles up against certain coverages. He doesn't do well up against bigger, faster receivers. He does well up against fast receivers, and he does well up against big receivers, but he doesn't do well up against big, fast receivers. Very similar to Tre'Davious White. So when we look at it, James Conner is probably not a play this week. Meanwhile, Brandon Cooks does have a chance going off. Deebo Samuel could be hyper efficient, but all 3 of these are going to be very low floor and also kind of low ceiling players, in my opinion.
Yeah, I think it's definitely Deebo and Cooks. I would take a wait and see approach to the Cardinals' backfield. I think that it could really go nothing would totally shock me in week 1, honestly. Like if Chase Edmonds gets 70% of the snaps, if James Conner gets 70% of the snaps, neither of those would totally shock me. If they come out and it's a 30-30-30 split with those two and Eno Benjamin, that wouldn't shock me. I wouldn't be starting. I wouldn't be starting any Cardinals running back with confidence this week. If I had to pick one, it would be Chase Edmonds because I think at the very least he's going to get the pass down role. And so, like, worst case scenario, he's like Naheem Hines in a really high over-under game. But, like, James Conner, what if James Conner just doesn't even play? Like, that wouldn't even shock me at all. If they just come out and they give James Conner, like, 2 carries in the third drive and he gets stuffed both times because he's washed, and they're like, yeah, we're done with you. That wouldn't shock me.
All right, so we got another question that actually kind of relates to this one. Is Edmonds or Gaskin?
Gaskin.
Ooh, up against the Patriots.
Yeah, because I think, I mean, I don't really know what Gaskin's role is going to be, but I think I know. Like, I'm pretty sure that he's going to be not the bell cow he was last year, but I think he's pretty clearly their lead back. I mean, I think without a doubt he's their best running back in all phases right now. And so he's going to have a pass down role. He's going to probably lead them in carries. Edmonds, I just don't know. I'm more optimistic on Edmonds than Connor, but I'm not super optimistic.
Did we already get this question for Swift?
I think that we did.
Yeah, we did.
And also, DeAndre Swift is spelled with an apostrophe. Show some respect to the legend.
To the legend. What's up, Husker? I know it's kind of late.
Yeah.
All right. That one's late. That one.
I too have some laundry to do. Gallup or Mike Davis? Oh man.
Ooh, I'm gonna take Mike Davis. I hate saying this, but I'm going to take Davis. This is tough. At least you have a guaranteed workload with Mike Davis, right? It's guaranteed. Gallup does not have anything guaranteed. Gallup does?
No, the idea that like anything is guaranteed with Mike freaking Davis is
still like you're guaranteed like 6 points. You could get 0.
Look, okay. I'll tell you what. This is not a decision that I have to make because I'm not drafting Mike Davis. But if you drafted Mike Davis, you're drafting him because you value a nice little safety blanket at your RB2 slot. You can toss in there.
You can't do a backhanded compliment when you recommend one player over another.
I can. Look, I've been put in a position by Jeremy to say good things about Mike Davis. Do you understand the wear and tear that has on my mental health? That's not good. So so Jeremy has caused me pain. I resent Jeremy Copsey for this question. I will tell him to play Mike Davis, but I'm not going to act happy about it.
We still have comments coming in, by the way, so we got some time to go. All right.
We get haggard. No more Mike Davis questions, please. Don't draft
Final cut. This is the final cut from
Goodbye, Russell.
22 Smith. Marvin Jones or Russell Gage. Oh, this is the air horn from a while ago, but I'm cutting Russell Gage over Marvin Jones.
Yeah, I often quote Ben Gretsch on podcasts, and usually it's with stuff that's really philosophical and nice. This case, I'm just gonna quote him being drunk on ship chasing and saying, "I feel so bad for this human being who drafted Russell Gage. Go enjoy your life a little bit more."
I love that.
Drop Russell Gage.
So much. All right, Antonio Gibson. Or Gus Edwards. Oh man, I'm gonna have to go Gus Edwards. I don't like the Gibson matchup.
What do you mean? The Chargers have been ass in a can at stopping the run for years.
Yeah, they also drafted players and they haven't been healthy. I don't see anybody that I want to play from Washington.
Antonio Gibson, please. You know why? Because Antonio Gibson will actually throw the ball to him. Gus Edwards averages 0.4. Yeah, they do throw the ball to Gibson. And Gibson too, maybe, actually.
Gibson.
Yeah. My hope, actually, is that Antonio Gibson is the one that gets all the carries. And instead of J.D. McKissick, they toss out Gibson as their third down back. But no, start Antonio Gibson. Don't listen to Chase. He's totally wrong. Gus Edwards has 0.4 catches per game in his career, even when he was a starter in 2018 with no Dobbins, with no Mark Ingram. Do you know how many passes he caught? Caught one. Caught one pass. Have fun with that. Like, what are you hoping for? You get 100 yards and a touchdown, you get 16 points. That's okay. Antonio Gibson's going to beat that in the sleep.
Unless J.D. McKissick has something to say about that. But, guys, just in case y'all just tune in.
J.D. McKissick has been silenced.
Give me a second. Just in case y'all tuning in.
McKissick.
We are just answering questions from the show earlier. We're now going on hour 148 and 30 seconds. So we're literally flying through these answering questions. This is not our normal Wednesday show. Just to give you all a heads up. But yeah, here we go. We have the next question. Anyone know who the RB2 is in the Chargers offense? And it sucks because I dropped him today. We talk about Joshua Kelly.
Isn't it Josh Jackson? I think the last commenter said it was Josh Jackson.
Justin Jackson. No, it's Justin Jackson. If Austin Eckler's out, they're going to use a combination of was it Larry Roundtree and Joshua Kelly on first and second down, if they even use Joshua Kelly. Meanwhile, Justin Jackson's going to be the third down back, and I don't want any one of those guys.
Yeah, so I kind of agree with Chase a little bit. Maybe I'm more bullish on Jackson, although he's been missing practice with groin issues, so I'm not sure what his current status is. I think he's okay. The way I view that backfield is that sort of there's like a standalone component and there's a contingent component, that it's not the same guy. I think that Kelly and Roundtree are competing to be the complement to Eckler, and then Justin Jackson is the handcuff to Eckler. So I think if Eckler's out, Justin Jackson's the guy you want to start. If you're just sort of looking for a guy who might be somewhat useful while Eckler's in there, I think it's probably Kelly or it might be Roundtree.
Yeah, I mean, it's just all such a shit show. Like, I don't want to make a play for any one of these guys with you. All right, so let's say if there's somebody off the wire, if not, you can always hold him and wait for an injury to see where he lands. I mean, I would love to hold a guy that's a little bit less masculine, so I'd like hold Tutu Atwell, just because I would feel more like a man, but I think we're like the same size, so I don't even know if I, actually I feel better holding him. I just definitely would not feel good holding a guy like, I don't know, like Sonny Michel. I feel like he would engulf me. Who would you feel good holding?
Who would I feel good holding? Who's like known for their soft skin in the fantasy industry?
Juju Smith-Schuster, probably from the TikTok videos.
Yeah, like Juju, right? Like I think Juju's a guy who uses some lotion. So I want to hold him. I'd want to caress his nice soft skin and feel it in my hands. Sure.
All right, we'll go with that. All right, so we just
Butch, what are you doing? Butch.
Would you rather own Tony Jones?
No. No.
Well, I mean, if it's a backup, maybe, right? Maybe
Ingram?
Kamara. No Ingram. I thought you were saying no for those. Yeah, no Ingram. Get rid of it.
I don't like Tony Jones, but Mark Ingram, get out of here with Mark Ingram. Okay, it's washed. Barkley? I have Edwards, Devontae Williams to replace him. CMC is my other. Should I play Barkley? Yes, you should play Barkley.
Yeah, I don't really know what that was about. All right, trade Nick Chubb for a wide receiver. This is when we went over.
We talked about this one. Calvin Ridley.
Yes. Okay.
I don't think Ramsey follows a wide receiver.
No, he
probably true.
He only
Fields will start week 2. Definitely true. Should
right,
I be worried about Eckler? Would you start? I picked 12th. Should I be worried about? So you already did pick. No, if Eckler plays, you shouldn't be worried. Like if Eckler is active, then you should definitely play Austin Eckler.
But would you start in the flex Coleman, Williams, or Gordon over the wide receivers in the flex, or over Josh Jacobs? I think I'd be set starting the receivers that you have. Meanwhile, Tyrell Williams, he's enticing, but I don't want to start in week 1. I want to see what happens. Coleman, I want to see what happens. And Gordon,
is that Tyrell? I thought that was Tyson Williams.
I
don't even know which Williams. Neither Williams. We're not playing either of those Williamses, right?
No, we're not.
I would start. I would start Melvin Gordon over both Josh Jacobs.
Look at Hollywood.
Okay, I would start Melvin Gordon over both Josh Jacobs and Michael Pittman. Josh Jacobs is playing against Baltimore in a game that they're going to get absolutely destroyed, and he doesn't play passing down. So Josh Jacobs is going to have like 6 points this week. He's going to be totally useless. And then Michael Pittman isn't very good. So I think I would start Melvin Gordon because he has about 2 to 3 weeks where you can start him with confidence until he's entirely made irrelevant by Javonte Williams. Enjoy.
Wait, is Hollywood Titans still in here right now? I love you. Like, I fucking love you if you're still in here right now. All right, so Marvin Jones
Jr. starts it. You should sit him for Jarvis Landry.
Yeah, you should. No, but I think this is more of a question that comes down to our Sunday morning starter sit. So we do a starter sit at 12 o'clock on Sunday mornings with this group, and the group chat goes fucking crazy, and we have to fly through the chat. So if you guys are here, like, we will actually say, hey, you have to start or sit versus this guy. You got to give us your league rules, and we will actually answer your questions as they pop up. It's insane. We get like literally over 400 to 500 comments on this episode, or on this show. So be prepared. Set your alarm. 12 o'clock Sunday mornings. I'll be here. Jacob's more than welcome to come. But it's literally insane. It's literally like just a fire shit show for start and sit. We'll answer.
I'll show up now and then at like 8 a.m. Pacific time.
Yeah, it's a lot. All right, so
I'll be hungover, but I'll show up. Why not? Shepard,
dude,
over
I
Marshall.
drink every time we do it because I'm still drunk from the night before. But
I'm like a little bit offended that Chris felt the need to tell us what team Marshall is on, as though we weren't aware.
Well, no, because most people don't read. Like, somebody put running back Michael Carter earlier on a post, so you have to understand.
That's fair because Michael Carter sucks. So I'm not aware that he's a running back. I don't pay attention to him. Terrace Marshall, however, you should. Okay, pick up is an interesting choice of words. So I would like pick up. No, if you had to start one, I would definitely prefer to start Shepard this week. But pick up, I'm assuming, is like as in on your roster and then sit on your bench.
Marshall.
Yeah, Marshall has like way more upside as a bench stash. But I certainly wouldn't want to start him this week. Hollywood is here. That's awesome. I also love you, Hollywood.
We all love you, man. You guys need to follow him over there on Twitter at Hollywood Titan. Love this guy. He's amazing. All right. So, since you just covered Jones Jr., he's sleeper week 1. I'd start Jones Jr. Should he find... Wait, is this a question? No, it's not a question.
I think it's a comment. But you must love this guy because he's talking about zone schemes. And he says that you can't trust Chark. Why? Is Chark blocked you in the past? What I would like to know about this question is, I would like to know how DJ Chark has mistreated you in some way. Like, was this a dating issue? Did he say he would call in the morning? Or did he put him on the stand? Did he perjure himself? Why can't you trust him? What has he done wrong?
I can't trust Chark because he's like that chick that gave you the best that she possibly could over the first 5 times that y'all hung out. And the next 10 times, 20 times, she gave you nothing. So I'm a big proponent on giving your 100% every time that you possibly could, but also it's a reflection on me being the quarterback and not giving my 100% every single time. And when defenses figure you out, you have issues performing. And when they don't know where the place is that you should deliver your balls, you should know, like, you should know, hey, it's not all your fault.
Are we going to name this? If we still posted the podcast version, could we name this DJ Chark Performance Anxiety?
I'm supposed to have a meeting with the guy that's handling our podcast 20 minutes ago. But no, so this is what I'm going to call it, and I'll make sure this is the outtake that gets taken up. Because honestly, like, you should perform. If you expect somebody else to perform, you should perform just as well. And that did not happen with DJ Chark. Unfortunately, Allen Robinson is the one person that we can name that just always did their best with subpar conditions. It didn't matter if it was hot, didn't matter if it was cold, didn't matter if the person on the opposite end to give their A game, it didn't matter. Allen Robinson overperformed. That's the outlier. So DJ Chark, what's up? Oh, also DeAndre Hopkins too. I guess there's a couple outliers, but DJ Chark was phenomenal over the first 5 weeks of the season until in 2019, till the defenses figured out Gardner Minshew, the 6th round, rookie pick.
You know what? There's been harder things to figure out.
I like DJ Chark.
He's not exactly the Kobayashi Maru over there, Gardner.
You're not wrong. So, which one do you have over these 3 while we're sitting here having a conversation?
Yeah, I would. If I had to start one, I would pick Laviska, and then I would pick Chark, and then I would pick Marvin.
I hate Laviska's ceiling.
What do you mean? So, he's like a second-year wide receiver. That's what ceiling is.
All right, so let's go ahead and talk about Pittman. because you love Pittman and this is your team. This is the Colts, and you're like a massive Pittman fan, right?
No, I hate that guy. But I only hate him for like 3 more days because once the season starts, then I'm just a blindly optimistic Colts fan. So once that game kicks off, I will have my Michael Pittman Jr. foam fucking finger. But for now, he's just the guy that we took instead of LaVisca Chenault, and it makes me mad all the time. Good matchup against the terrible Hawks. That's not true. The Hawks' pass defense was very bad for half the year last year. Then they actually got pretty decent. The only caveat with that, though, is that he is right, I guess. The secondary was bad. The pass D was good, but they did that a lot by pressuring the quarterback. They're going to not have issues pressuring Wentz. First of all, Wentz brings pressure upon himself. It doesn't matter how good his O-line is. He will find a way to get sacked. He just loves it. He just loves being sacked. And then also, the Colts don't have a left tackle. I don't think Eric Fisher is going to be ready to play. They lost MTV for the season. So they're down to their third-string left tackle. I'm very concerned as to how much time Carson Wentz will have in this game against the Seahawks pass rush that's pretty underrated. And I think Pittman, he has upside in this matchup for sure, but I'm not sure he'll have time to complete those downfield routes to MPJ.
All right, so let's go ahead and let's finish it out with this last episode. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for joining us. We have all the links obviously coming out, but Gaskin versus New England or Allen Robinson versus LA? Last question.
Stop trying to get me to start people other than Allen Robinson. Just start Allen Robinson. You drafted Allen Robinson, start him. What did we just say? We just talked about trust, okay? Allen Robinson is a trustworthy person. If you're dating someone, you committed to them. You went in the 3rd round and you said, I'm committing to you as the love of my life, Allen. And then all of a sudden, what happens? They get a tough matchup, right? They're saying, okay, tonight we're going to try this new restaurant. And you're going, I don't really like Lebanese food. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you like Lebanese food. You committed to Allen Robinson. You're going to go and you're going to eat fucking Lebanese food and you're going to like it. You're going to like it, and you're going to start Allen Robinson, and he's going to win you a week, and you're going to get out of here with these Chenaults and these Gaskins and every Tom, Dick, and Harry that you're trying to fly by night against Allen Robinson. He's awesome. Start Allen Robinson. Good night.
All right, good night, everybody. I want to give a real quick shout-out to the guy that handles our podcast. He's on here with us, right? It's Trev's Fantasy Pod. Make sure you guys go follow him over there on Twitter. This guy's the guy that is planning on taking over our podcast section of everything. This dude is amazing. He's finally figuring everything out. You're a teacher, right?
No. I work at a school, but I'm not a teacher.
Okay, you work at the school. All right. So either way, he's an educator. He's somebody that cares about our school system. So big shout out to Trev's Fantasy Pod. Make sure you guys go check him out. He has his own podcast going on, everything like that. Jacob, thank you for joining us, by the way. We're about to end our show.
I got to run because I got an auction draft starting now, but
we're out.
This was a blast.
I'll see you later. Thank you guys for tuning in. Thank you guys for listening to our fantasy football life.